Yeah, I liked that tune so much last week I thought I'd play it again in the pre-show roll, or whatever they call it. Hi, it's Thursday, April the 10th, 2025. This is Paul English Live, coming to you from jolly old England. We're certainly jolly, of course. It's just gone 3 o'clock US Eastern Time, 8 p.m. here in the UK. Welcome to the show. And I liked talking about the Crisis of Civilisation so much last week, I thought we'd just talk about it all over again. In today's show we have music, laughter, maybe even some, brace yourself, poetry. Oh, also in the crew. Hi everyone and welcome back. Hope you've had a jolly good week. I've had a very constructive week. It was good to get back behind the microphone, back in the saddle, whatever sort of terminology you want to use last week. That was pretty good. And I've been doing lots of house tidying. It's always exciting. I always like to talk about my domestic problems right at the beginning of the show or challenges. But I've got loads to tidy up, and we've had a pretty good week of doing that sort of thing. Had a lovely paperwork day today. Do you ever get those? I've had one. You'll be all pleased to know that it wasn't filing income tax returns, though. Terrible habit. You shouldn't really start doing that sort of thing. It's very, very irritating. But I've also been walking around a lot. Eric, when we bring him on, they're all muted at the moment, so I've got to this week remember to press the unmute button and bring them all in. But I'm not doing it just now. Eric will no doubt confirm. I think he's had a similar sort of result weather-wise. It's been spectacular as the weather. I'm serious. I've had a wonderful, wonderful week. Very cold, though. Really cold. I think, when was it? Wednesday morning. That would be yesterday, wouldn't it? I think it would. Yesterday morning down here on the old south coast, it was 0 degrees at about 6:30 a.m. Warmed up a bit, but very bitey. I'm going around in my shorts and it's very, very bitey on the legs and all that kind of stuff. But this is what makes life so much fun. We've never had, in fact, I was talking with a lady the other day. I was talking with several, actually, because as you know, I'm a real charmer. I'm always doing that sort of thing. I was talking with a lady the other day on my little gadabout round town and up and down the country lanes and the highways and byways of West Sussex. I bump into all sorts of people, particularly when, like me, they're big fans of the magnolia tree. And I don't know if I was talking about magnolias last week, but I kind of want to talk about them every week whilst they're in bloom. So you'll all be relieved to know that they're not going to be in bloom forever. They bloom for a very short period of time. And if you don't know what a magnolia tree is, well, you need to acquaint yourself with them. If you're into that kind of thing, maybe this is something that happens as you gather the seasoned years around your ankles or whatever, as you become a sort of vintage specimen of the human race. And my appreciation for beautiful flowers keeps increasing all the time. So I've been speaking to lots of magnolia tree owners and complimenting on their magnificent, there's a double entendre there, but I'm not going to go and use it. They're magnificent shrubberies and trees, quite spectacular they are too. So, and they're very happy by the seaside. They thrive on salt air, and they're all just about to go. So it's been really rather wonderful and marvellous and all that kind of stuff. So I'm full of the joys of spring, even though it's a little bit cold. Anyway, we've got all sorts of things lined up for you tonight. So interesting that I don't even know what they're going to be, which is what makes it all kind of fun. But I want to welcome onto the show the crew. I've just mentioned Eric, so I'll bring Eric in first. Eric, good evening to you. How are you this fine spring evening?
I'm very well, thank you, and I hope everybody else in the team and in chat is very well as well. And what a beautiful weather we're having. And apparently it's going to carry on tomorrow and on Saturday as well. So I might actually get on my bike tomorrow. I might go for my second bike ride this year. So I hope it's not too cold. So
Well, no, it isn't. I mean, I made a little guest appearance, didn't I, with you on Monday, which was a lot of fun. And I think I told you then that I'd actually get on your bike, for the first time in about 10 years. And I discovered that my rear end was just not up to the task. My legs were fine. I'm okay now, and I've been doing loads of walking, but my rear end really is going to need a bit of a training in its in its own right to get strong enough to actually cope with all this huge force that I put through the pedals. And so I had a slightly sore neck because I can't hold my head up. It's all this kind of stuff. You go, oh yeah, the legs are fine, but the neck and the rear end, they're a bit softened up in these middle years.
Well, it's not only that. If you've got a racing bike, the tyres are only about half-inch thick, and you're sitting on what is like a sort of oversized razor blade, really, because the saddles are not that comfortable. So
I know.
My theory is that's why on the Tour de France, I think they're out of the saddle most of the time because it's so uncomfortable.
It's just too painful. Yeah, I know.
Is, but I was going to say that what's happened with BitChute this week, I think us people in the UK have been saying naughty words such as we said before coming on air, grunties and shoe and things like that, because people in the UK will no longer be able to get into BitChute unless they got a VCN. Not VCN, what do they call it? Proxy server, as I call it.
Well, Trees M, very interesting handle there, who contributes greatly into the Paul English Live Telegram chat group, sent that over earlier today, but I've just not had a chance to actually read it. But I've got the little thing here. It says it's from BitChute. I did used to call them Shitbute, but that's wrong of me, isn't it? I always got my worms mixed up. BitChute, it says, to our valued users in the United Kingdom, so all you American types, you're fine, really. After careful review and ongoing evaluation of the regulatory landscape, yippee, in the United Kingdom, we regret to inform you that BitChute will be discontinuing its video sharing service for UK residents. The introduction of the UK Online Safety Act of 2023 has brought about significant changes in the regulatory framework, they do like that phrase, governing online content and community interactions. Notably, the Act contains sweeping provisions and onerous something or others. Onerous what? Hang on, it was just lurking behind. And onerous corrective measures with respect to content moderation and enforcement. So, bye-bye BitChute for Brits. It's a sad day for all of us, isn't it? Or is it? I don't know.
I don't know. I've got a site on there, and my audience has dropped by 2/3 because of this, because it's mainly Brits, because I think that BitChute is based in Swindon. That's last I heard.
I thought it'd gone to the Isle of Man at one point.
I don't know. But I'm pretty upset because although I can get onto it, you can get a free VPN.
Yeah.
There's loads of them around. Some people said you can get them free on Opera. Now, I got mine on Proton, but I was told on my Telegram channel that it's for the snoops to look into. So you're snooped on where you're looking with Proton. But I did manage to try it out last night. I got onto BitChute without any problems at all. And I also looked at, I wonder if I can mention it, Something Today, which has been banned from the UK.
Right.
Starting a country beginning with R, which is probably
Russia Today. Yeah, you can mention them. Yeah, they're fine.
Yes,
RT.
Today.
Yeah, they got wiped out here a long time ago. Yeah, wow.
Yeah, no, but you can see it live from Proton VPN. So, but I don't know if there's better ones. I mean, as I say, I was told that all the snoops and the Secret Service use that to find out who's on there, and it's data gathering. But what isn't? But I haven't tried the Opera VPN yet, so see how that turns out, because it's free with them. But it's it's quite honestly, it's really ridiculous, because they try and ban it in this country, but you just get round it. It's just bonkers.
Yeah, but you're right. I mean, people. Naughty people like us who are extremely naughty and would like to actually think some of our own thoughts every now and again. I know it's pretty bad that we want to do.
Dare you?
I know.
Think.
Yeah,
God,
I know. It's quite exciting, isn't it? Oh, I'm doing my own thinking. I actually have to go off into a small little dark room and make sure nobody knows I'm there, and then I start thinking away. Of course, they're paranoid even about that, but it shows you how important the whole of the thought field is to them. They can't have things arising like mushrooms in little clouds of interest all over the place. They can't stand all that kind of stuff. I mean, I know I'm only restating the bleeding obvious, but it's the case. So if you're in America, you can enjoy your freedoms while they last. You're probably not as free as you think you are, although you probably think this is a whining Brit, and if you do, you're probably right to think so as well. But what I think the calling, Eric, for us over here to some degree is to look at these things called private membership associations. And we need to have like our own members-only private video site where you have to, join it. A bit like, I'm sure we talked about this before. You know, when you used to go out and get wrecked in the pub, I know you say you didn't, but I'm not going to believe that. But many Englishmen used to do that, right? And they go, oh, I've had one too many. But it actually wasn't one too many because you get kicked out of the pub. And then there used to be like private members clubs, which you could join for like a tenner. And you got a free pint when you went in, and the licensing hours was till like 4:00 in the morning. Well, that's how pubs in the old days, or, to cater for the hardcore drinkers, which we all are really secretly in Britain. I'm not actually. Yeah. I'm not at all. But that's how you deal with it. So you basically sign a members agreement. And I think that's got to be done carefully as well, because it's as if every sort of little bolt holes and little hidey hole that we can create, they don't mind as long as it doesn't grow, but as soon as it starts to grow, they come up with new regulations to ban that and all this kind of stuff. So I don't know whether this is a good or a bad sign. I mean, we want to talk, don't we? Everybody's got to talk and all that kind of stuff. But we're going to have to find our own ways to keep on doing this. So it is a kind of sort of duck and cover, dodge the Bobby, dodge the Rozzers type thing. It's ridiculous, actually.
Yeah, but a good way of looking at it is, when you look at history, censorship is generally the last bastion of tyrants. So the more they're censoring, the more you're seeing that they're panicking. Mm-hmm. They're finding out too much. And I'm optimistic. I'm very optimistic. As I've often said, I think that Keir Starmer is probably a blessing in disguise, because he's going so far. Is the, shall we say, the last straw that broke the camel's back. He's really pushing it too far. So we just sit back and watch.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I suppose I'm slightly... Yeah. Is jaded the right word? I don't know. It's not jaded necessarily, because I'm completely open to spontaneous, odd, strange things happening. I think you've got to be, because they are going to... It's just that most of them are sort of not in our favour. But I still tend to sort of view the whole of the sort of reactive media, which, and in that I include most of the alternative media, and we're kind of reactive here at times. I try not to be all the time, but you can't avoid it. But I don't know what solutions it's ever going to come up with, because I still think it's observing dramas that are on the surface of the real problems, the real crisis of civilization, you see, and I don't think it's fully understood, and which is kind of a cocky thing to say, but I don't. I've got not much evidence to suggest that people really they're not thinking right. I had this old thing. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. There's that old, is it an adage? Maybe it's an adage. If they get you asking the wrong questions, it doesn't matter what answers they give you. And I'm going to suggest that for decades now, the whole of the manicured, manufactured mainstream press, whether it knows it or not, continually fails to ask the right questions. Continually. And when someone does, like certainly say, like Enoch Powell would make a political speech in a particular vein, and it would rock everybody, then you know that those are the areas that we've got to go to. And of course, the BitChute thing is part of that. Let's shut everybody off. We don't want them to even think that they can think about that. It's that far down the hole. They don't want it even coming up on your agenda, So there's lots of room for brilliant creative thinking, and we're going to need it. I think we're going to need it.
Well,
yeah.
I think they're brilliant creative thinkers in government, but in a negative way. That their evil is quite brilliant when you think about it, because every government for decades has done an incredible job of destroying this country from within. I mean, you can't. I'm not giving them praise, but when you look at it, they've done far better than any enemy could have ever dreamt of doing. So, and I think that Starmer's going to get all the glory for that, for being so evil. So
He might well do.
He
might well.
Well,
do.
I think we need an alternative Churchill speech that he never made, telling the truth. You're fighting for your sons and daughters to leave university and never have a job.
Mm-hmm.
They will then be, and we can sort of go on like that. With AI, you could probably do a Churchill speech that would be honest. That would be telling the troops of that time the future. You'll come out of the army, you will be denied a pension, and you will die in poverty of freezing to death because you can't afford to heat your homes. That's what you're fighting for, the freedom to do that. And seriously, I think we do need a good speech like that.
Well, I think with a bit more creative time available, and I'm expecting to get some. Yeah. I'm writing a couple of speeches right now, not in that vein, but I am. Yeah, I think more structures probably. Well, I'm kind of drawn to it at the moment. Go through little phases, don't you? All the time of thinking, well, maybe this communications approach would be slightly more effective. I don't know where I mentioned this. Maybe I mentioned it after the show with you on Monday or something. Was it this weekend just gone? I had a really... And Paul and Patrick, thanks for being patient. We'll come over to you in the land of the free momentarily. Here locally, there's a street market that takes place on the first Saturday of every month. So last Saturday was that first Saturday of April. And I just happened to be up there. It was quite reasonably lively. They shell out 30 quid for a stand about 10 feet by 10 feet, something like that. Lots of people selling honey and monkeys and trainers and all sorts of things. A bit of tut, but most of it was pretty good, actually. And there happened to be a woman there who is in charge of a magazine called West Sussex something or other, something like that. It's very well put together. I mean, it's got very high production value. It's all glossy paper and tons of colour photographs throughout it. Lots of local advertising. I think it's a monthly. It's been going for quite a while. And I didn't know that she was the person that was running it. She just said, here, it's a free copy. I said, I should think so. I'm not giving you £1 for that. I'm from Yorkshire, How much? And no, she was great. We had a really good chat. And I was just interested how many people were turning up. And we got talking about the town centre, which I had the misfortune to be in yesterday. Well, I kind of took myself in there intentionally, not to really scout it out. I actually did want to buy some shoes. And I know I could have bought them online, but I wanted to go for a walk at the same time. So I did, and the weather was good, and I got in there. But Wednesdays down there is also market day, and it was dreadful. It was really depressing, and the centre has fallen away. I mean, I knew a guy a few years ago. I mean, if I saw him again, we'd probably have a chat. When my sons were playing tennis, we bumped into a lot of people, local business people that run their own shops and their own businesses and this, that and the other. This guy had a really long-standing, I think his father had it possibly, furniture business for, putting furniture in your house, settees, that kind of stuff. It was pretty grand. And I walked past it coming out of the town, and all the builders were in there. It's all been knocked out, it doesn't exist no more. So being a nosy sod, I stuck my nose in and said, what's going on here then? No, I didn't say that because it was obvious what was going on. I just said, do you know when this place went under? He said, it's over a year ago. I said, which shows you how often I go down there, which is not that often, of course. And I said, well, he said, yeah, we're putting 2 new shops in. I said, well, hopefully, I said, that'll be a Turkish barbers and a mobile phone shop because we can't have enough of those, can we? This completely went over his head. It was completely not in on the wavelength. And I left sharpish, like it was very sort of serious kind of building bloke. Nice guy, really, but not really on that kind of wavelength. So I've no idea what they're going to be replaced with, but it's dead. It used to be, we had a Debenhams here, which for people outside of the UK was kind of this, sort of luxury kind of store, a superstore type thing. It's been around for donkey's years, actually, selling good men's and ladies' fashion. So I'd always go there and buy my suits, which, of course, I never did. I just completely lied and made that up. But they had good stuff in there. You could always go in and buy a nice tie if you needed one. That's gone. It was one of the nicest buildings in the town as well. So lots of emptiness, very drab atmosphere. You know that people are sleeping in some of those doorways tonight. It's not looking good. So it was good for me to go. and sort of get the reality of it. We talk about it here, but it's good to go and see it. Well, good's the wrong word. It's valuable to go and see it and let it impact on you, because it's not a particularly energised place. And this woman here locally, which is much, much nearer, she said, yeah, this is actually better than what they're putting on in the centre of the town, which it was. It really was. So I'm sort of umming and ahhing about taking a stand to sell what? Ideas. Opinions. £3 each. I'll give you a good opinion. Only £3, sir. What do you want? I don't know.
Well, what you've just described is really, you're almost describing Waltham Abbey. Now, Waltham Abbey used to have a market where you had to queue to get down the road, and it's I wouldn't say it's like the shambles, but it's very oldie-worldy, Waltham Abbey, but it's run down now. Now you go to the market, and it's like a very bad car boot sale. It's awful. There's hardly anybody there, and they just got, a few stalls, and that's it. And then, because why go there if there's only a few stalls? And they've done that. That's happened since the council put charges on car parking, because people say, well, why bother paying to park? They go and see a few stalls. Why not go down to the local supermarket and park for free? Yeah. And that's it.
The big squeeze is on, and they're squeezing tighter inexorably with each passing month. Or is it the great, the boiling of the frog thing? It really is that. I don't think you need to be a rocket scientist to work it out, but most people aren't even close to being a rocket scientist and don't even think about it. They just sort of keep coping all the time. But enough of this gay banter about the restricted, imprisoned English. Let's go over to those wonderfully free American types. Paul, are you with us this evening? I know you are. Hi, how are you? How are you this fine afternoon? And is it really still as cold as you mentioned it was pre-show? Is it very chilly?
No, actually, it's in the 40s now. It was 20-ish this morning when I woke up. It was terribly cold. You see, I always know when the mornings are cold, because when I wake up, I discover that the cat has kind of burrowed underneath the blankets and is curled up in a little ball under my armpit. How she can stand to be down there and still breathe is absolutely
I was thinking
mystery
about your poor cat. That's the first thing that popped into my head.
Yes, the poor cat. The poor cat. Well, at least it wasn't a morning after an evening's 13 bean soup. She won't even come near the bedroom on days like that. But
I think that's more information than we needed.
The magnificent shrubberies. I was thinking of the magnificent shrubberies, and I'm thinking that if they can't actually have shops or businesses that actually make money in that square, the circle that you were referring to, maybe they could have some inglorious bastards plant some magnificent shrubberies, and there would be a space where people can actually go and enjoy themselves. Maybe.
Yeah, no, they need a bit of that. I mean, they seem to love concrete more than they love trees. Although this is a pretty treed sort of place. It is, actually. It's pretty good. There's a place called Grand Avenue, which is lovely. It is rather grand. And it must have been really grand when they laid it out, I think probably in the late 1800s, because it's it's got maybe 2/3 of the original houses, which are pretty massive things. And they're all over sort of like well over £1 million, these lot, and maybe a bit more as well to boot. They're big old sort of Edwardian houses and stuff like that, and Victorian stuff. And they're just fab. And the road's very wide for English road measurement purposes. It's very wide, and that's why they call it Grand Avenue. So it's 2 or 3 times wider than a normal road. So it sets the houses off good, and half of them, of course, as I said, about a third have been knocked down and turned into blocks of flats in the 60s and the 70s. And they're not too bad, but they are blocky and square, and really, in comparison to a proper house, they're absolutely awful. But it seems to tick over okay. I mean, I was... what was happening? Yesterday I spoke to about 4 or 5 people, because anybody that I see, I'm going to speak to them. I just do it. But it's when we're the English and we talk about the weather all the time, it's easy to get a conversation going. We just talk about the weather, just like we did at the beginning of every show, because it's the best way to start. And I bumped into this guy about 10 years older than me, John, who came from Lincoln, and he won't be tuned in at all. He was walking his dog, and we just struck up a conversation. It was about... not very long, about 3 hours. I kept him pinned to it was about 10 or 15 minutes, and It was just good to talk to him. Similar story to me. He'd worked up but it all happened 10 years earlier. We came here 2001. He came here 1991. He was about 10 years older than me. He was working in some sort of thing in London, got fed up of it, moved down here because his wife's parents were here. There's the same in my case. My wife's parents were on the south coast here at the time. So I was going, oh, isn't this interesting? Then it turns out that he comes from Lincoln, and my brother-in-law is from Lincoln. This is so parochial and completely not newsworthy, but I'm saying it anyway. And then his mother originally came from Leeds, and she moved to Lincoln. I said, well, that's a terrible blow. Why is she not still there? But no, nice. They're really good people that I bump into. They're all, bumbling around with their dogs and things and just talking and moaning a little bit. You can hear the sort of whine, the sort of economic whine in the back of everybody's sentences that's going on, and it's building up, like an air raid siren, rightfully so. So hopefully it'll break out into something good. But yeah, the shrubbery idea is good. It's good. We've got a lot of trees, as I said. We just do. And I, still being sort of pastoral about the whole thing, I was out walking, where are we now? Thursday, 2 nights ago. Tuesday, in fact, yesterday, I did 20,000 steps yesterday. I walked over 10 miles yesterday. I don't know quite how I did it. I think it's because I went out 3 times and I couldn't be bothered to get in the car, probably because I didn't have one. So I walked all over. But on the Tuesday evening, I'm walking past this church and they've got peregrine falcons nesting in the steeple. And we saw them. Fabulous creatures. These are absolutely, they're almost like mythical to me. First of all, they've got the most wonderful name, a peregrine falcon. It's just great. I don't know who named it, but, top marks for that. And there are 2 of them nesting up there. And apparently they've got some over at Chichester Cathedral as well, nesting up there. And I've been speaking to the father there about bell practice. I said, don't the bells sort of, disturb them? He said, no, because they have bell practice on a Tuesday evening. And one of them flew off as I was sort of looking at it, which was great. And I saw the other one sort of hop up on the ledge, and the sun was going down, and all its breast was red and orange with the fire of the sun. You see, I'm feeling rather poetic today, but it really was very inspiring. And just to let you know, that's the fastest thing in the world. Those things descend at 240 miles an hour or something. Outrageous. Unbelievable. That's like you and me traveling at 2,500 miles an hour, if you think about it.
Yeah,
and still being able to see through our eyes. I have no idea how they do it. It's absolutely amazing stuff. So beautiful.
Little
really
wipers.
Yeah, fantastic. Great. I get very giddy about stuff like that. I do. It's just really, wow, there's nature. Brilliant stuff.
As far as the whole BitChute thing, the only reason that BitChute is not in the UK is because the UK people are allowing the tyrannical administrative state to pass laws, rules, and regulations that they enforce regulatorily.
Mm-hmm.
You're actually allowing them to do it. Just stand up. Go tell your damn lawmakers you're not going to censor what I can hear, and you're damn sure not going to censor what I can say. Just back out of the whole thing. I mean, in the U.S., we have the National, okay, where the administrative state doesn't have any jurisdiction or authority. They have no in personam jurisdiction over a national in the United States. So I personally don't care what they do regulatorily because it doesn't apply to me. And any of them that try to actually apply that to me, I will let them know that, no, you don't have jurisdiction. You're causing me injury, and it's going to cost you dearly.
Mm-hmm.
There has to be the same thing in the UK. You've got to tell these people they can't keep messing with your lives just because they have a mahogany desk and people around them that say, yes, minister, very good idea, bloody good. Let's implement that straight away. The people need us to live their lives for them.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of that going on. There is. I think, this is going to sound like a lame excuse or something, but the disease here has sort of gone outside of political circles. It's been in media circles for a long time. It's difficult to find the sort of people's journalist. I mean, are you aware of any, Eric, in any major newspapers, like somebody who actually speaks? They used to have them, people like, was it John Sadler? He was a bit vulgar at times. And then there was Keith Waterhouse. Do you remember him? He was a playwright, but he used to write a column in the 80s and the early 90s. Mainly in the 80s, I remember. I can't remember when he passed. Wasn't he sort of responsible for Billy Liar, that play or something? I think he was, Keith Waterhouse.
No.
They used to they used to write gritty stuff, and I'm not aware of that. We've just got a lot of flamboyant, goofy, well-tailored, cheesy sort of echo chambers. I mean, they've always been echo chambers,
right.
But that's really what's going on.
It's not journalists; they're churnalists, because they just churn over a load of propaganda, and then to make sure they get their monthly pay slip, they just report on what the propaganda wants them to report. There's no such thing as investigative journalists anymore.
No. Well, we need another. I think we need another. We need a change in another area before we're going to see changes there. I think that I'm going to come to that in a moment. But before I do, let's bring on our ambassador over in Wisconsin. How's the cheese weather today, Patrick?
The ambassador of cheese.
The ambassador of cheese. How's the cheese situation, Patrick, today?
I think it's okay. Can you hear me all right? I'm talking on my mobile right now. So
I just thought you had a mouthful of cheese when you were talking. That's all. I don't mind. Of course, you can eat while we're doing the thing. No, you sound fine. I'm teasing you. You sound fine.
I have a bit of business I'm tending to at the same time, but yeah, I can talk.
You're multitasking. Is that what you're telling us?
I'm multitasking for a little bit here until I'm free to devote my entire attention to our talk here. But I think that I like what you're doing with the PeerTube instance as a way of getting around this whole censorship of BitChute and getting people's voices, from preventing them from speaking the truth to the power, because the powers that should not be are making these laws that where they think that they're the only purveyors of truth, and we need something that can get around that. And I think there's always going to be something like that that's going to take place, where you get one mode of communication taken away from you. We're clever at finding another mode of communication, so
yeah, I
think it's necessary.
I am, of course. I'm exceedingly clever at that. You're quite clever at it. And Eric and Paul are reasonably clever at it, and all the listeners, of course, are exceedingly clever at this sort of thing. I mean, when they do this, you see, they don't have to completely wipe you out. It's a bit like soft kill all the time. It's very energy sapping when you build a thing and you build a sort of head of steam up with it, and then they change a thing, and it doesn't quite kill you off, but it wipes out a huge chunk. It's like when people lost a lot of followers on YouTube and things like that, and they know this. I mean, it demoralizes the communicator. They go, it is. It's, whatever people might want to say. I know there are certain channels that have got huge numbers of followers, and they tend to translate into lots of live listeners and things like that. I don't have much of a YouTube channel, although shout out to everybody on YouTube. That's growing all the time, so it's wonderful to have you here. I'm keeping an eye on the chat there. And of course, to all the reprobates over in Rumble, good evening or good afternoon, depending on what part of the world you're in. Welcome. And I haven't even had a chance to even look at the comments, but it's reasonably lively in there and ticking over, so that's quite good. But yeah, I think sort of a little bit more thorough planning might be. It's very tedious that I say such a thing, but these private members associations apparently hold out some kind of a defence for this sort of stuff, and we would have to create some kind of a private members club. And this means, of course, it starts off very small, which in its own way can be slightly discouraging for everybody. Well, there's only 5 people here. I mean, there will be a day, with these things where there would only be 5 people. But yeah, if we can get the sort of structures right, and it could grow in terms of, building up membership and that kind of stuff and structuring it in a proper way. I mean, there's nothing stopping them becoming members and then seeking to, chew it out from within, and they will absolutely do that once it gets to a size where they get concerned about it. That's exactly what they do. They just pretend to be a pal, and then they cause trouble. Yippee! But nevertheless, we have to keep using the tools that we've got available as best we can. And Patrick there, just for everybody, just mentioned a thing called PeerTube, which is kind of a way in which one can set up one's own version of YouTube. It sounds a bit grandiose, but you can do it. It's not as sophisticated as YouTube is, nor does it need to be, but it does provide levels of controls and multiple channels for creators, as we are all called, or communicators, as I think is probably nearer to the truth, to have their own channel and develop their own following. So Falcom Hall and Patrick and Paul and me and others, George Hobbs possibly, because I mentioned it to him at the weekend. It might take a few weeks to put it in place properly, but we're going to have a go at this, I think, and see how it all works out, which means that this show would run here on Rumble and on YouTube and on this other platform as well. Initially, it could even be just viewed as a safe haven backup, which is fine. It's absolutely fine. But it's got live chat in it as well, which is really key, I think, for these sorts of shows. So we'll give it a go. These things always take a little bit of time to build up a head of steam, but if we can get it structured right at the beginning, it might prove reasonably attractive to a broad array of chatters and chatterbox types like ourselves. So that could be pretty good. Yeah. Yes. Anyway, theme of this week's show. It's not. We don't really have themes. I just come up with a picture and a title, and we'll talk about it for 5 minutes or maybe 55 minutes. I don't quite know. Last week, the show was called Crisis of Civilisation, which is the title of a book by Hilaire Belloc. And for those of you on the radio, you can't see the magnificent image for today's show, which is of, on the left, G.K. Chesterton. I have to say, looking rather slim in that portrait in comparison to most of the photographs I've got of him. He was a man who really did like pies or whatever. And on the right, we've got Hilaire Belloc. And many of you will know I reference Belloc quite a bit, and in my mind, for very good reason, because he's tremendous. You'll be very interested, Patrick, to know that some of his, I think you will, and maybe everybody will be interested to know that some of his essays have all been released by a publisher which I believe are monks in Ireland. I came across this printing. They've released all his essays, which are some of their fantastic things. They're extremely thought-provoking. And Belloc has written on usury. He's written on banking. He's written on economics broadly and in great detail. He's written on the servile state, which is the condition we are now in, everyone, even though it's not really fully detailed for everybody. He's written on he wrote a great book on the freedom of the press, and he wrote these things about 100 years ago. And he also wrote some tremendous things on the Reformation. He wrote a book on the French Revolution, which I've not read, but I'm going to get a hold of, because I think I mentioned last week when we started the show, I was early on, I was reading Nesta Webster's The French Revolution, which is absolutely brilliant. But I'd like to see what Belloc's take on it. So he's a very bright lad, and he talks about the things that are still plaguing us to this day. He does, and I think, Eric, when I was on with you on Sunday, I kind of brought this up a little bit, which is one of the things that he talks about that I was just reading last week or during the week with regards to what happened with this thing called the Reformation, which is worthy of everybody's attention, because one of the points he makes, this is under Henry VIII, okay, 1530s is what we're talking about, this period of choppy heady things getting chopped off and all this kind of stuff. It's a pivotal moment, this separation of, or the creation of the Church of England against Catholicism. He deals with it in a really brilliant way, because one of the things he points out is that the root of the rot had begun in Catholicism about 150 years prior to that, at the end of the 1300s, and it slowly built up. And big power structures and systems tend toward this as they get bigger and bigger, and less sort of, the communication lines get longer, particularly in those days, and it didn't go so good. So the Reformation didn't cause it, but it enabled it to happen. Without it, it wouldn't have fully happened. So it's a sort of 6 of one and half a dozen of the other. And what he talks about 3 types of, or 3 areas of, what would you call them? Control, conviction, organization, which is the spiritual, the political, and the economic. And what we actually do require, and of course this all comes down to what your definition of the word spiritual is, but what he talks about, particularly in the middle of the book, is he talks about the requirement for a spiritual regeneration. And in fact, all these major pivotal changes throughout history have started with that. even the Reformation started with a kind of spiritual disturbance within people being cross about paying mortuaries, with these colossal fees they had to pay when people died. They just kept adding things on. Recognized today? Maybe I was saying this last week, but if I am, I don't mind saying it again, because repetition's the key. So everywhere we look today, there are additional charges for everything, and the existing charges keep going up. There's no accountability. Nobody justifies why your electricity bill's going up at all. And it's getting exhausting. And this is what happened then. That's that happened. So there was this change. Then once you've had a spiritual one, once people have decided that it might be good, it might be a good thing for people to become moral and ethical about and have a standards, i.e. law, by which to live by, because without it we can't protect our civilization. Then you start to tell the political class, or the political class will respond to that emotional, spiritual outcry, demand new direction from the people. That's us, guys and gals. And then finally, supposedly, in the proper organization of it, the political force will structure the economic life so that it supports the desire on the spiritual level. What we've now got, it's not rocket science, is it's completely in reverse. Everything has moved over to economics, which is just a sort of deceptive way of talking about central banks and usury. That's really all it is. So central banks and usury hide behind economic reports, but it's all guff because nobody knows how banking works. So how can you work anything out? And they are now bossing the political class, and the spiritual regeneration is being kept down, maybe courtesy of things like, shutting BitChute down over here or whatever. It's all morphed the wrong way round. And the challenge before us, ladies and gentlemen, is to discover what it is that we think spiritually, and in more common parlance, you would say morally and ethically, what it is that we require, that we need to restore that thing called civilization, which you have to say it's a bit of a stretch, the definition of it right now, what's going on, because there's so much uncivilized behavior and hostile behavior from the so-called elites and these other people who are completely beholden to money, to the money power. Did I say all that last week? I probably did, didn't I? But that's kind of where we're at. And I can't recommend Crisis of Civilization enough, like I've recommended other books. So I would really, if you don't read things in long form, I urge you to do that. You might not like that book, but you might have other things that you want to get stuck into. But it gives you a longer period to actually think about things, and you'll start to think things and see things, I'm going to suggest, that you will see that the political class are never going to see, because they're too busy having dramas in the newspapers. They actually can't think straight. In fact, although this is slightly at a tangent, where have I put this? I think I've got this somewhere. Have I got this somewhere? You heard of a guy called Mike Graham? You probably won't have heard of him in the US, but he's a morning breakfast guy over here. His show is Monday to Friday, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. That's a bit of a shout, isn't it? I don't know what time he gets up. Good luck to him. But I just caught this little snippet. Now, this is about the migration thing, but it's not really even about the migration. It's only about a minute long. I've mentioned here before, when we talk about our rulers being mentally ill, not as an insult, but literally true. This is kind of on that thread. He mentions the name of the guest, but he mentions it very quickly, so I can't quite work out exactly what his full name is. It's only about a minute long. Just cop a load of this, as they say.
Perhaps William Clifton does. William, very good morning to you.
Morning.
Very good to see you. You've been away, travelling on your travels, which we'll get to a little bit later on. Yeah. I guess we should kick off with the big story of the morning, which is the rape gangs, and what on earth this Labour government is doing to basically deny justice to so many young women who they say they want to protect and who they say they want to fight for. Yeah. They say they want to safeguard young women and girls, and yet here's an absolute opportunity to do it, and they've turned it down.
Well, they will, and I think it's because the whole episode cuts against their worldview. Yeah. That's the reality. So all of these Labour MPs, they have a worldview based on oppressors and victims.
Right.
And the oppressors are white people and the victims are various minorities. That's how they think, Mike. That's
so they can't actually see the reality.
Can't get the reality cuts up against that.
Yeah.
It's so butts up against the whole worldview, and that's why their reaction is to resist it and pretend. They're actually pretending. I think the reality of what's happened is so bad that their reaction is just to sort of deny it themselves. They can't deal with it. It is, it must be the biggest race-based crime in post-war Europe. Probably.
It got to be.
Probably, on the numbers.
Yeah.
It's horrific.
I mean, it's almost like the level, for me, only worse, of a terrorist attack.
Worse than a terrorist attack. Now, it's not really the migrant stuff, although we can talk about that. Because I view that as a symptom, but it's the fact that for Labour, read Conservatives, read all of them, they're all in a kind of psychological denial about what's taking place and what they're responsible for. Gents, I'm assuming you've kind of noticed this in whatever is your neck of the woods.
Oh, yes. Yeah, because if they recognize it, they may be put under pressure to do something about it.
That's right.
Which they don't want to do.
Well, they don't have a clue what to do about it.
Oh, no, I think they have ideas what to do, but they don't know who they're going to upset or how it will affect their position or their pocketbook or their chance for re-election, whatever. They just don't want to be put in that position. And if they don't recognize it, if they close their eyes, they won't see it, and it's all good.
All going to go away, isn't it? It's all, I mean, who could possibly disagree with bringing everybody to live in your country and we're all going to love one another and it's all going to work out fine, even though there's literally no historical precedent for that ever happening, ever, nor can it, because it runs contrary to the natural instincts of how people really want to behave. And they don't want to behave hostile. And they then, we mentioned this repeatedly, but we're going to do it again. It doesn't mean that you hate the other people. It simply means that you want to retain your way of life, and it's absolutely impossible to do it when you've got admixtures of different races in the same space. It cannot be achieved, which of course is the entire goal that they're after. But I thought his point, it's good that, that's a major listen to station. And you wouldn't have heard things like that. Where's that? That's talk radio over here. I'm not sort of saying it's all brilliant. I'm just saying that every now and again, you hear things coming through like that you wouldn't have heard even a year or so ago. They're prepared to actually try and address these issues. There is obviously a major problem with the so-called migrant crisis. First of all, because it's not a migrant crisis, it's a political betrayal crisis. That's what it is. And the political class that are betraying us are so stupid they don't even realize that they're betraying the country. That's why I say they're mentally ill. They're not even aware of how recklessly stupid and dangerous they are because they've got their ideology and you can't go against it. And I thought his point was well made. They can't actually cope with it. They're literally going to brain fade. And I mean, we've seen this for donkey's years, I suppose, in nearly all political speakers over here. I don't know what it's like in the States. I don't follow it as closely. But trying to get a straight answer out of a politician is not possible. They're just,
I think they see it as a cost of doing business. They see it as a cost of doing business. They're bringing in massive amounts of illegal immigrants. Those immigrants are taking the jobs that Americans or Brits could be doing, and they are being given the right to vote. And in some cases, many cases, they're given public welfare, and at the highest level available. The lion's share. I don't have any numbers to back it up, but I would believe that the lion's share of people that are receiving Social Security are doing so at anywhere between $1,200 to $1,800 or $1,800 US a month. Some of these guys were getting like $3,900 a month. They didn't pay into the system. They're not American citizens. They're not naturalized. They weren't born here, and they're getting almost $4,000 a month in benefits on a card. Plus, they they qualify for food stamps, they qualify for Medicare and Medicaid, for free medical care. They're getting all of these freebies when the American counterpart is forced to live on less than a third of what these guys are getting. And they worked here their entire life.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, we have a similar thing, similar dynamic here at play. We really do. I mean, part of it,
they
seems
want
to
voters.
Well, I guess they do.
Who are you going to vote for?
They want that.
You get somebody. Pardon me. You got somebody that's ready to give you $4,000 a month in cash money, $250 a month in food, if not more. Who are you going to vote for? Are you going to vote for the guy that's complaining about the immigration and wants to shut it down? Or are you going to vote for the nut who signed the check to the detriment of the rest of the country just because he wants a vote?
Mm-hmm. But I mean, if we wind that back a bit, if you even wind that back a bit, we've got this point of why is it that people that are not of the nation, the home nation, get the vote? Why?
Yeah,
nobody even asked me if they could have the vote. Well, we know why they did it. They're literally being brought here to provide the vote to the people that brought them here. And so, but by law, this is me being pathetic. By law, that shouldn't be allowed. I don't like it.
No, it shouldn't be allowed.
Please
it should
stop.
be considered treason.
Please stop doing that. It's really upsetting us all. It's that. So that's where we're at.
Yeah. It should be considered treason. And the ones that are doing it should be strung up. Not the illegals. They should be given a one-way ticket back home. The ones that are doing it, bringing them in, need to be strung up.
Eric, do you think that's a good case for capital punishment? What say ye?
Well, it's. I don't think there's any case for capital punishment because how far do you go? Nobody's got the right to play God,
but they're playing it. I'm playing agent provocateur here. They're playing it.
Yes.
I mean, if you look at their decisions, it has resulted in the death of British girls.
Yes, but also they're psychopaths. And as Dr. Hare, a Canadian doctor who's a leading expert on psychopaths, has said, come very close to saying, rather, he hasn't really said it out loud, that they are a different breed to human. They are a kind of subsection of breed to us. So they have no empathy at all. And as they're a different breed, their sort of, shall we say, programming is to kill humans, is to make human life unpleasant. So my view is to put them on an island away from us. They have as much right to live on this earth as we do, but away from us. And they'll never get off that island. And that's it, full stop, end of. It's the easiest way because, we are programmed not to kill people. So how are you going to get someone like Pierpoint to lynch these sods? Those skills are no longer around. They don't exist.
Couldn't we just feed them to the lions? They used to do that a couple of thousand years ago. Couldn't we do that?
Well, it's a bit entertaining, isn't it, really? Or you could have a modern idea with instead of having the guillotine, you have a circular saw that just goes along a long line of them, straight along, you see?
Yeah.
And job done.
I mean, I think a main challenge for them, I mean, I think we kind of sort of try to fulfill that role to some degree, is to really get the finger pointing in the right direction. So obviously the knee-jerk reaction around the migrant thing is, we don't want these people here. That's exactly what they want you to say, so that they can paint you out as a racist and make it even worse. It's a bit like Starmer's response to the stabbings whenever they were, last year. It's just absolutely ridiculous. He was more concerned about white people being outraged by this and the potential upthrow of their ideology. Just going back to that little clip we just played there with, from the radio. It's that same thing. They can't actually cope with it. We have to find a way, because we can't actually cope with our government. Because they're not ours. We can't cope with it. I mean, if they carry on behaving the way that they are doing, and I see no signs that they're just suddenly going to go, you know what, we've been completely wrong about this. We're really upsetting our own people. When has anybody ever said that? They're not going to, like just plain common sense conversations that you're never going to hear, because everything's got to be so sophisticated and it's got to have an expert, and there's always an inquiry. Have you noticed that inquiries, as if this is, well, there's going to be an inquiry. Yeah, and that just means some people sitting around smoking a few cigarettes and going, what do you want to do about it? I mean, it's a joke. We're going to have to find force from somewhere. I mean, I think it's a mental battle first. To get this information published and beefed up. Maybe it's going, I mean, there are positive signs. It is going up. But every time one of our people gets harmed and we don't do anything about it, we're going to get harmed even more. The rate of harm coming to us is going to increase, the speed of it, and it is doing. Because that's how nature works. It goes, oh, they're pushover. We'll push them over then. Whether it's right or wrong, it's not that I disagree with you. Yeah. I don't like the idea of it. But when if it's us against them, and that's what they're trying to make it, right? Then they'll get the mayhem that they want, and people won't be sitting around going, "Oh, I don't know whether I want to kill anybody." Someone will be coming at them with an axe, and they'll just act, won't they? And I know I'm getting silly. I know I'm getting carried away, but maybe I'm not, because history tends to show that this is what occurs if you keep projecting weakness out to people. They become more and more emboldened and think, well, if you don't want all this stuff, we'll just take it off you. All right. That's what's happening. That's kind of what's happening.
But what about the ongoing propaganda? I mean, my neighbours say to me, yeah, but the English don't want to work. That's why we're getting all these people coming over. What?
Mm-hmm.
Now, who started that propaganda off? Because to me, that's come from the social engineers. The British and the English don't want to work. They're too lazy. So you've got to employ people from overseas. That is 100% propaganda that's sent out. So my answer is, well, we weren't too lazy to fight in World War II, were we? World War One.
See, when the government wants us to kill, we'll do it.
Yes.
So it's the connection to the government. Yeah, I mean, it's still there. There's no two ways about it. It's still there. Apparently we would do it. Apparently they're going to line them up to do it again. But there's something else. I just think there's something else that's got to take place before we can actually deal with it all. So something internally, something internally is still required. It really is.
An outrage. That's really what. That's all wars start with, an outrage. That's it. And I'm just waiting for the outrage to happen. World War One started with an outrage. World War Two started with an outrage.
Mm-hmm.
Usually just engineered. And stupid idiots will believe it. Go, oh yeah, isn't that terrible what those Russians have done? People are stupid. They really are, and they'll fall for it.
I mean, I think this economic thing that Paul was just mentioning, and that we're having here, where people are coming over here and getting houses and everything. I think it's got to be a component part of the laying the groundwork for wheeling out central bank digital currencies as the solution to this economic problem, which they are currently creating for us. So they're creating this problem intentionally with all this outrage. They're ignoring everybody. They're manhandling it. They're using all their wonderful psychological skills to misdirect people and to get people emotionally connected to bottles of beer and cheeseburgers. Nothing wrong with beer and cheeseburgers, but if that's all you've got going on in your life, it's a bit of a problem. And they're undermining, literally, of course, all of the remnant of the economic strength of here by design, so that they can say, well, here's the solution. It is the old problem reaction solution thing. It never fails to sort of work. So we're in the problem emphasizing, problem expanding phase here. I think it's definitely part of it. Anyway, let's take a break, shall we? Let's play some rock and roll music. I don't know whether it's probably rock music, actually. My brother sent me this the other day, and I quite liked it, really. It's a bit rowdy for this show, so I thought we'd make a change. We're going to do this. We'll take a short break and a little station ID. You listen to Paul English Live here on WBN 324. We're going to take a bit break, and we'll be back on the other side of this little lot. It is a bit raucous, isn't it?
Attention all listeners. Are you seeking uninterrupted access to WBN 324 Talk Radio despite incoming censorship hurdles? Well, it's a breeze. Just grab and download Opera Browser, then type in WBN324.zil. And stay tuned for unfiltered discussions around the clock. That's WBN324.zil.
The views, opinions and content of the show hosts and their guests appearing on the World Broadcasting Network are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of its owners, partners and other hosts or this network. Thank you for listening to WBN 324 Talk Radio.
Hi and welcome back to the second hour. It's just gone 3 minutes past 9. Look at me doing all the sort of radio jock timing nonsense. I don't know what's getting into me. It's ridiculous. That I really rather like that song. Gents, did you like it or did you hate it? I don't mind. You got to tell me. What do you think?
Well, I think it was quite jaunty.
Quite groovy, wasn't it? Jaunty, did you say? Did you say jaunty?
Yes. Yes.
Don't say that we don't
whatever
expand
that
your
means.
lexicon of words around here. Jaunty, yes, that's a very good word. I quite like jaunty, Paul. You can come back next week. That's great. Yeah. Eric's not saying very much.
okay.
I think he threw up. Did you hate it, Eric? Tell me.
It was all right, and it actually it does cure constipation, I think. So I think it's
Oh,
okay.
for
Yes.
crying out loud.
No, actually, I kind of I could take it or leave it. It's a bit catchy, I think. You know.
Completely indifferent. Not jaunty enough for you, then, I think. I think we can safely
No,
say.
it's-
No.
you
It
know,
lacked,
it's
it
not
lacked
sort of-
sufficient jauntiness. That's what you're saying, aren't you?
You want a bit of German rock. That's what you want. That's what I kind of like. You know, a bit heavy.
Oh,
that
there
is.
you go.
Are you? Are you a headbanger? Secretly, are you a headbanger, Eric?
Yeah.
It's all coming out now. I thought I better
This
start.
is Deutsch. You want to play This is Deutsch? Yes, it is.
Okay. All right. I'm getting a feel for this. Yeah.
Eric, you
German-
are but a paperclip in the earlobe and black lipstick away from being a right proper rocker.
Yes.
I tell you what, Eric, you've thrown me. This is really, really weird. I've got all weirded out now. I feel like I don't know you at all. Gosh, that's
Well,
really.
listen to some German heavy rock. Actually, it is very catchy. I think you'll like it. And I used to play it at the beginning of my shows before YouTube, so it was a copyright
Look,
strike. But
you send me some over in between shows, and I'll give
I
it.
will.
And if it meets with my jaunty approval, I might give it a go. I've got to say, I feel slightly trepidatious. There's another word for you, everybody, about it. So yeah, I do. I'm slightly anxious about it, but there we go. Patrick,
send you
you know a
some.
thing or two.
You like it.
Patrick knows a thing about tunes and cheese. What did you think about that tune, Patrick? Did you quite like it? Was it jaunty enough for you? Where's he gone?
I might be working on something else.
He's not interested. He's just left. He's eating cheese. It's all gone. I gave him such a great intro. Oh, he's actually deserted the studio. Oh, I know what's happening. He's deserted the studio, but he will be back in. I think what he said to me earlier was that he was going to be on his mobile for the first bit because he was churning some cheese or whatever he was doing. It was actually, all that kind of stuff. And he's probably hightailing it back now in his hot rod to his studio so that he can, get behind a proper grown-up adult microphone and feel part of the crew. So, well, if you missed that, that's it. Anyway, for those of you who want to be put out of your misery, that was J.D. McPherson. Never heard of him before. An American type in his 40s. That was called Head Over Heels. There's quite a bit of material from him, but I thought that sounded a bit like Motown in a bit. His vocals were sort of Motown-y, but he's a sort of, a rocker.
You want a bit of ice pressure. Put a bit of ice pressure on. I think that Monica might like ice pressure. Very nice it is.
Well, are they a band called Ice Pressure?
Ice. That's EISBRECHEI. Ice pressure, is that?
I quite like Ice Pressure, though. That's the way I heard it because I'm an English type. Ice Pressure.
This is Deutsch with lyrics. Yeah, go onto YouTube, get there about that. I think
Eric, we're going to get banned. If you start talking like that, they're going to go, who are those Nazis out there? I'm a Nazi and so is my wife. Yeah, and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll try and get my lug holes
at all.
Yeah.
But though they play the big concerts in Germany, and they're quite all above board. They're very good, actually. And they certainly know how to do a bit of... they'll give quite a few, shall we say, status quo a run for their money, I can tell you that.
Exo says,
very anti-war.
Exo writes, by the way, hi to everybody in the chat. I'll start looking now. We'll bring you into the show. We're so rude. We're all so into ourselves around here. It's awful, isn't it, really? Exo says, send Paul that awful song by the Scorpions. No, please don't. Please don't. I can't be doing with that stuff. It just drives me crazy.
Which one by the Scorpions?
All of them, Paul. All of them.
Oh no, I actually have a USB thumb drive in my car that has nothing but Scorpions tunes on it. I have the entire discography. I could literally drive for 1,200 miles and not repeat a song.
All right, okay. So am I sort of detecting a head-banging subculture here in the show? This is really what's going on. It's getting quite alarming now. Where's Patrick? He'll bring some. I did, yeah, but you're finishing it off. I feel finished off by all this stuff.
What about a bit of ice breath? Yeah, there's loads of them, you see. Rammerstein, that's another one.
No.
R-A-M-M-S-T-E-I-N.
No.
America.
No, can't stand it. No. Oh, I'm shuddering. No. Oh,
all
dear.
about bold, you could take your granny to one of their concerts. That's how nice it is. See,
what's wrong with Des O'Connor and Vera Lynn, Eric?
Nothing.
Listen, I know nothing. I mean, listen, there was a headbanger in me, but it really hurts. And in the end, you just go, this is very, very silly. Right? It's very silly. And also the fact that nearly all those musicians are now literally deaf, from what they're doing. It's very, very silly. It doesn't need to be so. I'll get some Morris dancing music as a bit of counterpoint. How about that? That'll make everybody chirp up, won't it?
What about Charlie and his orchestra? You introduced me to Charlie and his orchestra. They're all right, aren't they?
Yeah, they're good. I mean, I did play you the greatest one, which is The Man with the Big Cigar, which is without a doubt.
Yeah.
And I've listened to a lot of them, and it's just outstanding. Lyrically, it's outstanding, of course, because it's so wonderfully cutting and true. And, of course, it's also politically colossally incorrect, and so I can probably only play it once without getting banned from everything. But, yeah, they're good. Charlie and his orchestra, cracking little band. Anyway, where were we? Oh, I know what I wanted to play. This is completely going off. Were you talking about, Ursula Fond of Lying, or Ursula von der Leyen as she's known? Is she German or Dutch? What is she? Anybody know? Answers on a postcard, please. I can't work it out. Is she German or Dutch, everyone? Anybody in chat? No? I don't know. Ursula von der Leyen. Yeah,
yes,
she's
my granny had Ursula von der Leyen.
Yeah,
she took tablets, but it went away.
I know. Well, she's that sort of blonde-haired bint that's always talking complete nonsense. I mean, that doesn't mean much. They all talk nonsense. You know the one, right? And she's been dropped in there. Nobody voted for her or anything. So, whatever. Gutch. Is Gutch like Dutch, Exo? He's written Gutch. I think it's Dutch, right? She's Dutch, is she?
Yes.
Hang on, I've got a little clip of her saying something absolutely hilariously insane. You might have all heard it. I wonder if anybody put it in the chat. I got it a few days ago, actually. Where have I put this? Where have I put this crazy little thing? Hang on. I've got it here. It's very brief. You ready? Brace yourself.
Europe is the values of the Talmud. The Jewish sense of personal responsibility, of justice, and of solidarity.
Let me play that for you once more, just so that you think what you heard
the level.
Is actually... Pardon? What's that? Is it a bit quiet?
Pump up the level a bit. It was real quiet.
Pump up the volume. Here we go again.
Yes.
Europe is the values of the Talmud. The Jewish sense of personal responsibility, of justice, and of solidarity.
I'll just play that little bit right at the beginning again.
Europe is the values of the Talmud.
There we go.
Europe
is the values of the Talmud. Yeah. So this is someone who redefines the definition of a blonde bimbo. She actually makes most blonde bimbos look hyper intelligent, and I don't think blondes are necessarily bimbo-ish. In fact, I think they should play on it. Most of the blonde ladies I've ever met have been sharp as razors, to be quite honest. But that's just hilariously insane. Don't you think that's insane? It's like someone who literally doesn't understand who she is, what the history of Europe is, or anything, or what the Talmud is at all.
She'd have to become more sane to be rated as insane, I think.
Yeah, am I in bannable territory with YouTube now? I think we might have just moved into it. Their AI bot's going to go crazy. They've just said the word Talmud. No! I just find it's... should I be... what are we supposed to do with something like that? I mean, you can only just draw the logical conclusion that, A, she's never read it. I have, not all of it. I've read enough of it to know that it's not worth reading all of it at all. And it's a very silly book, in my considered opinion. If you have a different opinion, that's fine. But mine is it's silly. It's also very dangerous. And it's got nothing to do with Europe at all. In fact, it's the complete antithesis of everything that supposedly the traditions of Europe stand for. So are we to believe that she's basically a Talmudist? Well, and therefore, is it any surprise why things are... Yeah.
Wouldn't she?
I should think so.
But how
she's trying to promote... She's trying to promote the Talmud in the UK. She's trying to promote it as she's not suggesting it because the people that have already been lulled to sleep by the little wavy blue lines while they're watching the mainstream news, they're already in a hypnotic receptive state. Then they'll just be all glassy-eyed saying, "Oh yeah, that's where that comes from. The UK has the Talmud." Okay. Please, give me a break.
I've just got to go and get something to calm down. I need some drugs or something. Because it's just
I think I need bubbles. I do.
You?
I think I need bubbles. Yep.
But what do you mean champagne?
It's 5 o'clock somewhere.
It is 5 o'clock somewhere.
Have you seen these bubble tea places springing up? What is bubble tea when it's out? There's one that sprung up. I actually went down to the town today, and there's a new place called a Bubble Tea. What is it? It looks as if it's from the Far East. It looks Asian or something. Does anybody know what bubble tea is? I mean, is it like an arrow that's melted in, melted into a cup? What is it?
Are you just making this up? What bubble tea? What you mean English tea but with bubbles in it?
I don't know. It's a place called Bubble Tea.
A place?
Your bubble tea. Yeah. You can actually buy bubble tea. What the hell is it? I don't know. It's expensive though, whatever it is. Does anybody know in chat?
I'm thinking it's probably a tea that's been injected with carbon dioxide to make it carbonated. I think it's just a carbonated tea.
That sounds weird. What's wrong with normal tea? Normal tea's great, isn't it?
I know.
Hang on. I got it on YouTube. It says bubble tea is a popular Taiwanese drink known for its chewy tapioca pearls, boba, and various flavours, often including milk tea, fruit, and different sweeteners. Oh, it's very expensive.
Terrific.
Sounds horrible, doesn't it?
Sounds bloody awful.
I'll just stick to PG Tips and the Monkeys, if you don't mind. Yeah, absolutely. Alvin Kurt writes, "Hello all, cooking away. That clip made me laugh out loud and spit a mouthful of ale out. What a waste of good beer, Alvin Kurt. Personal responsibility rights. I'm just doing a really theatrical laugh for you, Alvin Kurt. Yes, it's just absolutely tremendously insane what she just said. Like 180 degrees, completely, totally incorrect. Marvellous. But Paul, you're right, unfortunately. This is the thing about developing things further and fuller. Now, I know this is not necessarily a place for poetry, and I've not talked much about G.K. Chesterton, although, as you know, I'm partial to a good poem. And the picture, just going back to today's picture of the show, because we dip in and out of sort of this, that, and the other, don't we? I'm not in control of this, everybody. I don't know what's going on. But G.K. Chesterton and Hilaire Belloc were very good pals. It was down to Belloc that Chesterton became a Catholic. You might think I'm an advocate for Catholicism. I'm not. That's not what I'm talking about. But I am an advocate for brains, and you've got to admire them wherever you see them. And these two fellas had more than their fair share of brains in all sorts of ways. And also, until you've actually read Belloc's stuff, you don't get the right sense of what he means. He's talking very much about the organisation of Europe and of Christendom. And I know I mentioned this last week, and I think that this is, certainly at the moment, it's looming large in my thinking. Something has got to take place. And I know every time I say things like this, people think I'm advocating for you to go to a church. I'm not. In fact, by the strict definition of a church in its early days, this is a church that you're in right now. You might not be able to see us, but the initial definition of a church, which comes from kirk, which means circle of the elders. It's a gathering of the elders to get down and to discuss the affairs of state, i.e. the condition of life, what is important, what is going wrong and what we can put right, etc., etc. You know, what human beings have been doing for thousands of years whenever they can. And so this is one. And Christendom, certainly when you read about the organisation of England prior to the Reformation, under this whole structure was better than this. I'm going to say it now. It was better than this. And the reason is we've moved over. Capitalism could only have come about after the Reformation had basically destroyed that structure. That's why we live in a world dominated by the money power. Now, the money power has always existed, but there were lots of safeguards placed upon it by the church, whatever you may think about that, to stop it getting out of hand. Usury still took place. But when it was found, I know certainly in England, up to about 1,500 and odd, if you were caught issuing a mortgage, you could be hung, drawn and quartered. So there's capital punishment for you, Eric. You're not going to tell me you disagree with that, or are you?
No, not for usury, no.
There we go. I found it, everyone. So he's a headbanger. Yeah. Eric's a headbanger. Yeah. And
but hang on.
Yeah, go on.
If you hang them using bungee rope, then there will be egg bangers because they go straight up and hit their head on the top of the gallows, won't they? Boing, boing, boing. That would be fun, wouldn't it?
Yeah. And it's like I was saying to you the other day, we need that T-shirt that says usurers' lives don't matter.
That's a brilliant one. I like that one.
Oh, yeah. I every now and again, I have my moments. So, but it's key. It's absolutely key stuff to get a real handle on this on how the organisation should work. Now, one of the other things that, and I don't have much on it at the moment, although I've read essays by Belloc, particularly where he addresses this, is the power of what is known as the guild. Everybody's heard of guilds, right? G-U-I-L-D. They're not kind of what they used to be. They're still kind of clinging on to all the really excellent qualities of what a guild was. It was to protect craftsmen and to make sure that competition did not get out of hand. And we live in a world where competition has not only got out of hand, it's almost impossible to have any competition with those that are favoured by the money power. For example, Amazon, for example, yes, and all these other massive concerns, which are basically an amalgamation, I guess, of what we would now call the deep state, which is this combination of control of markets, control of money, which can only be achieved, through the control of money. Chesterton had a lot to say about this as well, and they're thinking on broad economic grounds and how men are reduced down to a state of slavery, which is where we're headed. So the highest level that we've achieved, really, as the common working man, was the free peasant. So you start off as a slave, you move into being a serf, which is where they're trying to push it now, to get back to feudalism. And after that, we were free peasants. We owned land, and without ownership of land, you can't get nowhere. Anyway, we've also been talking about, look, I'm just trying to stitch a little idea here together so I can read you this poem, if I can find it. Here it is. It's going to take about 5 or 6 minutes, but I am going to read it. This is a poem by Chesterton. He wrote it about 1908. He's about 33, 34 years of age. And it's for us. It's absolutely for us. It was for us then, and it's for us now. It's called The Secret People. And here we go. So just sit down, get your cocoa. It's going to take about 5 or 6 minutes. There might be a few fluffs, but here we go. The secret people. Smile at us, pay us, pass us, but do not quite forget, for we are the people of England that never has spoken yet. There is many a fat farmer that drinks less cheerfully. There is many a free French peasant who is richer and sadder than we. There are no folk in the whole world so helpless or so wise. There is hunger in our bellies, there is laughter in our eyes. You laugh at us and love us, both mugs and eyes are wet. Only you do not know us, for we have not spoken yet. The fine French kings came over in a flutter of flags and dames. We liked their smiles and battles, but we never could say their names. The blood ran red to Bosworth, and the high French lords went down. There was naught but a naked people under a naked crown. And the eyes of the king's servants turned terribly every way, and the gold of the king's servants rose higher every day. They burnt the homes of the shaven men that had been quaint and kind, till there was no bed in a monk's house, nor food that man could find. The inns of God where no man paid, that were the wall of the weak, the king's servants ate them all, and still we did not speak. And the face of the king's servants grew greater than the king. He tricked them, and they trapped him, and stood round him in a ring. The new grave lords closed round him that had eaten the abbey's fruits, and the men of the new religion with their Bibles in their boots, we saw their shoulders moving to menace or discuss, and some were pure and some were vile, but none took heed of us. We saw the king as they killed him, and his face was proud and pale, and a few men talked of freedom, while England talked of ale. A war that we understood not came over the world and woke Americans, Frenchmen, Irish, but we knew not the things they spoke. They talked about rights and nature and peace and the people's reign, and the squires, our masters, bade us fight, and never scorned us again. Weak if we be forever, could none condemn us then. Men called us serfs and drudges, men knew that we were men. In foam, the flame at Trafalgar, in Albuera plains, we did and died like lions to keep ourselves in chains. We lay in living ruins, firing and fearing not, the strange fierce face of the Frenchman who knew for what he fought. And the man who seemed to be more than man we strained against and broke, and we broke our own rights with him, and still we never spoke. Our path of glory ended, we never heard guns again. But the squire seemed stuck in the saddle. He was foolish, as if in pain. He leaned on a staggering lawyer. He clutched a cringing Jew. He was stricken, it may be. After all, he was stricken at Waterloo. Or perhaps the shades of the shaven men, whose spoil is in his house, come back in shining shapes at last to spoil his last carouse. We only know the last sad squires ride slowly towards the sea, and a new people take the land, and still it is not we. They have given us into the hands of the new unhappy lords, lords without anger and honour who dare not carry their swords. They fight by shuffling papers, they have bright, dead, alien eyes. They look at our labour and laughter as a tired man looks at flies, and the load of their loveless pity is worse than the ancient wrongs. Their doors are shut in the evenings, and they know no songs. We hear men speaking for us of new laws, strong and sweet. Yet it is there no man speaketh as we speak in the street. It may be we shall rise the last as Frenchmen rose the first. Our wrath come after Russia's wrath, and our wrath be the worst. It may be we are meant to mark with our riot and our rest God's scorn for all men governing. It may be beer is best. But we are the people of England, and we have not spoken yet. Smile at us, pay us, pass us, but do not quite forget. There you go. So you don't get culture on this show. The Secret People by G.K. Chesterton. You should look it up and read it every now and again, because it nails a lot of really jolly good things. Now, where do we go from there? Comments, anyone? I don't know what you're supposed to say, really. Better than the rock song?
Well, he sums it up, doesn't he, really?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, let's face it, we're since 1066, we have just been slaves, full stop, end of. And apparently we work more hours now than the peasants did. A serf did years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just getting ridiculous. You know, I mean,
yes, we do.
What are we paying in all this money for? It's just ridiculous. And I've noticed prices have shot up dramatically. I usually buy my eggs from the farm for £1.65 for 6. Now it's £2 for 6. Unbelievable. That's quite a price rise. And it's going up everywhere like that. Not just a few pence, but the water. we have to pay 40% more after the 1st of April for our water, which is horrendous. Where are people going to find the money from? It's leading the country somewhere.
Serfdom, intentionally.
Serfdom.
It's designed to bring it about.
Yes.
This is the technology that they're using, the technocracy, to create the perception, it's not true, but the perception that everything's askew, which of course it is, but not for the reasons that they're going to give you. And as I said, the solution is going to be the only way to stave this off is for a highly efficient money system called central bank digital currencies. Really? Is it? The only way is to forgive all the debts and to restructure loans. Yeah.
So that the government knows exactly what you're doing, can dictate to you. I mean, these handouts the governments, to me, that is failure of government. Because if a government's doing its job right, you shouldn't have benefits, shouldn't need them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's showing their failure. But we don't get politicians knocking around the door like we used to. But if one does knock on my door, I'll just ask them one question. What is your party prepared to do about stopping usury? It's a one question. It's very simple. And they'd be off like a rocket. I almost guarantee it.
Most of them really don't even know what it is. They don't, They just don't know. I mean, because there's no awareness that it's a topic worthy of thought. It's that bad. It's, it is the emperor's got no clothes thing. It's right in front of everybody's face, but their ideology, like that clip I played, literally makes them incapable of doing it. So it's obvious that any minute, I know we've spent minutes addressing them, talking about them or thinking about them, is on our part a minute wasted. I mean, it yields literally nothing back to us. It's not as if we don't know in sufficient degree. I'm not saying 100%, but it's not as if we don't know what is the primary fault to fix. There's a primary fault above all other faults in the practical realm of living, and it's this. And at great length and in tremendously precise language, Belloc addresses all of these things in the Crisis of Civilisation 100 years ago. I mean, there's a whole section about manufacturing and the speed of telecommunications. So that brings him right up to date, irrespective of whatever phase of this advanced technology we're now in. Whether he could or could not have envisaged the internet is irrelevant. What he's really talking about is that as this competitive element in society has now been unbridled, there are literally no checks on it and haven't been for some time. We are absolutely stood there naked in the marketplace with no defence at all. No matter what they say, they get you all, you've got some rights and all that. In concrete terms, it translates to nothing because they're, the political class is literally the puppet class of the banking class. So, it's good to ask your politician whether they would ban usury. They probably couldn't even spell it. But even this magazine I was talking about that I picked up on the street the other week, at this little market, there was a little column in there by the local Labour MP. It's just completely insane what this stupid bint is talking about. But she doesn't know it. She doesn't know that what she's saying is completely counterproductive to producing civilization. It's a serious mind problem that's out there. It's like serious. I guess this is what happens when you do have to make a decision. You're either going to obey the laws of nature, the laws of God, whether you're comfortable with that way of expressing it or not, or you become an adherent, a disciple at the temple of Mammon. And it's us against the disciples of Mammon that's at stake. It's really very simple. And they want all the freedoms for themselves to basically extract as much value from you as they possibly can, because they're now concerned that, you might, if you really find out how much you've been robbed, you might fight back, and they don't want that. So they're actually put most people in a situation where they will never find out to what degree that they're being robbed. And of course, because we are highly adaptive creatures, which we have to be, of course, we get used to just about anything. And on one level, it's a good thing, and on another, it's a terrible thing. It's terrible. It breeds this sort of, demoralized complacency around everywhere. Oh, quite a cheery little sentence there. Yeah, Paul.
They're kept too busy to actually be able to look around them and see what's happening to them. The alarm goes off at 5:30 in the morning. They choke down dry toast and a cup of coffee. They get in the car. They fight gridlock for a half hour to 45 minutes or an hour in their commute. They punch in. They sit in this little square cubicle, 6 foot by 6 foot, and then they punch out, they go home, they're exhausted, they've already fought traffic yet again for the day. They sit down, they pull something out of the freezer, they pop it into the microwave, they completely kill any food value in what they eat. They sit down in front of the TV, they listen to the night's evening programming with the mainstream news, and then they watch some stupid humor just so they can unwind a little bit and relax, and primetime TV. Then they go to bed just to wake up the next morning and do it all over again. They don't have the time or the capacity to actually see what's going on around them. They are kept completely in the dark, and because they don't know what rights they have, because they don't know what rights God gave them when they were born, they will never declare them, they will never claim them, and they will never defend them. Therefore, they will never have them. You only have the rights that you declare you have and you can defend. Otherwise, you have nothing.
Spot
nothing.
On. Yep, absolutely. It's absolutely that. And it's finding these conversations. I mean, I often think, is it worth it? I mean, it's I'm in a conundrum. I've been in it for years, and no doubt maybe many people listening here have the same sort of challenge. Do I pour more energy into this group, these people that I'm with? I mean, it's not as if this happens that often now to me. It doesn't. But, we've all probably communicated certain things that are true, that are completely alien to the ears that they're going into. And, of course, you just get rebuffed. I don't blame them. I'm just thinking, are there any sentences available to me that would actually unlock those ears? Are there? Or is it such a long, slow, gradual process, which I suspect, unfortunately, it is, that the idea of thinking that you can actually get through to someone in one conversation is really a little bit wrong-headed thinking. Well, but someone's got to communicate this stuff. We've got to communicate it, and we have to build up some kind of a communications army. That's the best way to think of it. Not a military one, but it's an army that's going to be able to communicate these truths in such a way that people go, really? Although I've noticed that even when people have a bingo moment, and I've mentioned this before, you might meet them again then a couple of weeks later, and it's as if you never said anything. You're back to square one. It's as if it only went in blindingly for like 10 or 15 seconds, but there was no further follow-up. And it's that, really, isn't it? It's something about being a sort of really bugged by this. It causes you to continually question it 24/7. I mean, I suspect you guys are like that. I wake up on a morning thinking like that, and it's like that all day, and I go to bed thinking I could stay awake a bit more and think about it a bit more. I mean, I don't know whether it's a good use of time. I take a break every now and again, because you've got to have a cheese sandwich.
Yeah, but
there is a way to fix that. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Eric.
No, sorry. I chimed in after you. It's okay.
Okay. There is a way to fix that. What they need to do is see if you talk to somebody and they have an aha moment or a bingo moment, like you call it, then they go back home and they turn on the telly. And the next day they turn it on again and they turn it on again. There's people who leave their TVs on 24/7, 365. What they need to do to fix this is they need to take their television, they need to unplug it. And if they live in a 2-story or 3-story house, they need to carry that television up to the top floor that they have. And if they can get to the roof, so much the better. If they can get high enough off the ground where they could open a window or go out to the ledge and just toss that TV and let gravity take care of their programming, they would be much better. They need to turn that damn thing off, because they call it programming for a reason. Tell, lie, vision. It's programming. Get rid of it.
It's difficult to get people to get rid of it, isn't it? You're right. You're absolutely spot on. I think, I don't know. Answers on a postcard, please, everybody. Someone got the magic. There isn't a magic bullet, is there? There isn't one. It's just, at least you could say the positive here is that we get fed, at least mentally, all the time by being mentally so concerned about this stuff, which I think you have to be. You know, there's that other quote that if you are reasonably bright, let's assume that we are. Let's at least give ourselves that sort of credit. The problem that you kind of have, the more you research into things and you become aware of things that the vast majority of people are still completely oblivious to, is it makes your life quite grindy, doesn't it? It's quite a thing. It's like the more intelligent you are about the problems of the world, the more miserable you get. You go, oh my God, it's actually not that difficult to fix, except these people don't even know what I'm talking about. Bummer.
Yeah, but
Well, just look at what the mainstream news is doing. Okay, you've got this talking head sitting behind a desk, and he's bringing you stories. I mean, all of the stories are negative. They're very, very, very few human interest stories or any uplifting stories. It's all negative. It's all this person was shot dead because police caught him doing something bad, and the police took care of the problem, or the police took him into custody. What that's doing is it's doing two things. It's telling you that the world you live in is unsafe. So it's building a foundation of fear just in your daily lives. And if you're coming from a place of fear, it's impossible to come from a place of logic to look at things. And it's also telling you, well, it's a bloody good thing that the cops were there to take care of this bad guy. I need the cops to protect me because the people in this story needed the cops to protect them. So it confirms and reaffirms the helplessness that people feel, that they need a nanny state. They need the government to take care of them. They need the government to do tariffs and things like that to support the country so they can protect the populace. It's all about the nanny state. What we need to do is we need to find a way to shake people and get them to realize their own power and their own individuality and their own strengths and get them to stand up, for God's sake. They have to do it.
Could we find
never going to.
Is there a drug that we could just stealthily administer to people?
I have no idea. Well, they say LSD, like opens up.
Is there a chemical solution? Can we go to
awakens
chemists? Any chemists out there? What can we do? Yeah.
Yeah, let's get some balls in a bottle. Can anybody come up with a formulation for that?
Come on. Balls in a bottle. I quite like that.
Bubble tea.
I'd buy some. Yeah.
Get your balls in a bottle.
Patrick, you're back. You're back. We were speculating on how you disappeared in Cheeseland or something. Have you hightailed it back to the studio? I don't know how long I'd left you out there hanging and drying, but good to have you back.
No, I was only there for a few minutes. I'm doing well. Just got back. Had some business to take care of. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
But, I was interested in the bubble tea conversation. I know what this drink is. It's like these big tapioca things, and you just suck them up with the straw, and it's way overpriced type stuff. But yeah, balls in a bottle. That's what I think of when I think of bubble tea.
Yeah, it's a phenomenal price, and there's some toffs sitting in there, drinking this stuff. I mean,
it's trendy.
I just go for a nice cup of tea or a nice cup of coffee.
Nice cup of tea.
Like 10 years ago.
Nice cup of tea, yeah.
Nice cup of tea.
Most of the time, never ever have a cup of tea in an English pub because it's normally a cup of piss. And I always have coffee when I'm out there because nobody can do a cup of tea like you can do it at home. That's what I found. Very rare do you feel a nice cup of tea.
I know. It's always better in the pot, isn't it, if you make a load? So I'm always trying to encourage. It is. The one tea bag thing, you can make it work, but you've got to be patient with it. But in a pot, it's fantastic. Yeah, I love talking about tea almost as much as I like drinking it, really.
And pour some cow juice on the top, some milk, but make sure that it's either goat's milk or it's raw milk. But the trouble is, you pour it into hot tea, what it does, it homogenizes it. Because it over a certain temperature, it knocks out all the goodness of the tea, of the milk.
Mm-hmm.
So you go and buy some raw milk, pour it in your tea, and then you've got as good as homogenized milk. So that's the secret of the story. Don't pour it in your tea.
Or let your tea cool down.
Yeah.
Cool down? That's for mamby-pambies. Real men drink hot tea. That's what we do in this country. I bet you drink hot tea, don't you, Paul?
Real
I do.
men don't put milk in their tea.
Yes, yes.
Well, the English do. Yeah, we're frowned upon. It's terrible that you're supposed to put lemon in it. But I've told you that I was telling someone who was I telling the other day? About last night, actually. I was out with some people drinking wine, not tea. How about that? It was really rather nice, actually. And people that I'd not seen for quite a while. I had a jolly good laugh. We were talking about Graham, what's his name? Hancock.
Norton?
No, Graham Hancock and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's really good fun and talking about all that. It was groovy, really. Not as heavy and miserable as this show. It was fun. It was actually fun. But, we were talking about tea and all that kind of stuff, as you do. And the pub was selling tea, and it wasn't very good. So, but the thing, I've said this before, but for new listeners, there's a reason about the English tea break. So, because they were talking about having that was it. They're kind of working guys. They said, we have a tea break at 11. I said, you know why you have a tea break at 11? I said, it doesn't have to be 11. They said, what? Well, we just like tea. I said, no, there's a reason why it's in the English culture, right? Is that when they were building all these massive cities across Europe and Britain in the 1800s, with the arrival of gas and electrical things and conduits and all that kind of stuff, they were being built, and the form of transportation all around them was horses at the same time, with horses and carts. Horses are rather dirty creatures, of course, as you know, and they're rather unruly with the control of their bottoms and the other parts. So there's lots of fluid and all that and manure flying around everywhere. You've got pools of stagnant water. You've got gas and everything. It's a pretty toxic, rather nasty atmosphere to work in. Lots of sort of airborne viruses and very easy to get ill. What they discovered was that if you get your workforce drinking tea, which they did in England but not in Europe, the tannin in the tea lines the lining of the stomach with a kind of coating which makes it much more impervious to receiving infection. It actually makes you slightly more resilient. So they instituted it. You had to drink tea. It wasn't an option. You were going to drink it. And the amount of days lost in England to illness were about 1/3 of the days that they lost to England. That they lost across Europe in building these big. So there you go. And it's tea that made this country what it is today. Aye.
And you heard about the Queen and the horse, haven't you? Have you heard of that one? Apparently, this is supposed to be a true story.
Okay.
Yeah, well, it's supposed to be true. Now, whether it is or not, make up your own minds, but it's supposed to be true. In the 50s, some bigwig from some country out in the Pacific, some Pacific island, Lord whatever, came over to this country, and there's Queenie next to him in one of these horse-drawn, open carriages where she's waving to people and all that. Mm-hmm. And suddenly the horse let out a terrific fart, and the Queen said, "Hey, pardon." And this king of Fiji or wherever said, "Your English is so polite. Before you apologised, I thought it was the horse." Sorry.
Oh, Eric, it's only taking you an hour and 45 minutes to get one in. That's pretty good. Yeah, we like that.
But going back to more serious stuff, okay, before the lockdown, I always used to puzzle me how Chairman Mao managed to genocide almost, a billion people? We don't know the true score. And Stalin, what was it? That was about 8 million, wasn't it? Or something, or 80. I don't know. We don't know. But a phenomenal amount of people. How did that happen? And how did they get to power when Stalin only got in with 7% support of the population, and Chairman Mao got in with only 5% support of the population? Of course, they were backed up by American dollars, so we're told. And then after the lockdown, or during the lockdown, I could see the reason why. People are so bloody compliant. I was the only one walking around in a great big superstore without a mask. The only one.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody else walking around with these face nappies on. And there was a mobile injection unit set up in the local town square. And the police had to be called in to keep the crowds, and there's a queue wrapping around a corner of people having Williams toxic arm brew, Bill Gates toxic arm brew. And I realised people are just compliant. And that mass formation theory, which we was talking about on Sunday, it's very true. 1/3 will believe everything the government says. 40%, so it's 30%, 40% will go with the flow, and 30%, like us, can see straight through it. So that's why the government play to the 40%, and all it needs is 5% of that 40% to be pushed over to your side for any big major change.
Mass formation?
Yeah. Yes, mass formation theory. Yes. And it's a very interesting subject because it's always 1/3, 30%, 40%, 30%.
That's why they push the notion of higher education. Then these people end up becoming the leaders in the society afterward. Right. And they exclude the people that they don't want. You're mentioning Chairman Mao. He was schooled by the University of Yale here in America.
Really?
They had an extension university over in China that they ran, and he was part of that. And another fellow you could look up, Sidney Rittenberg, was his handler for the bankers.
What about Maurice Strong, the Canadian businessman?
Yeah. I've heard a bit about him.
Well, Strong died in China. He died in China, did
right.
Strong. He loved it so much. Yeah. It's because it's their blueprint for everything. That's what they think's great. They do.
I was way off. I mean, when you said that Chairman Mao won the election with only 5% of the popular vote, I was thinking that you were going to say that they used the American system of voting.
Well, no, he wasn't voted in. He just came in, didn't he? I think I don't think they voted in. Same with the Stalin. But the percentage of support they got was only 5% in China, 7% in Russia. That was it. Very small percentage. So how do they do it? Just and they obviously know exactly how to program people. And my theory is that psychopaths have the ability to hypnotize people, because I noticed that during that lockdown, the amount of people they walk around like a hypnotic trance. Yeah, but,
what did they do? Most of them sat around their houses. They were locked in. They didn't have any interaction with other people, particularly if they lived alone. And the only entertainment was the television. And I thought we discussed that minutes ago.
Yeah, we did. But what I like to do during the lockdown is act deaf. That was more fun than anything else.
What?
When someone said,
"Yeah, what?" I was going to say.
What?
It's fun for a radio show too.
Hey?
Yeah,
what do you say? I can't hear you, Eric. Speak
up. What? No, because you know when they put little arrows in the stores. You get that in America. You had to go follow the arrows. I went the opposite way round the arrows, and there's people posted, members of staff said, "Hey, excuse me, you're going the wrong way." So I'd say, "Pardon? Can you come a bit closer? I can't hear you. Pardon? Sorry." And in the end, they gave up. But I always said that. "Could you come a bit closer? I can't hear you." "Pardon? Pardon? Do what?" I wasn't really deaf, of course.
I think I tried that a few times.
Yes.
Especially when you get into that situation where it's like they're going to do something, and it's like, well, I'm just going to play dumb. What?
Yeah.
Or play deaf in that case.
But, they loved it, didn't they? I mean, I had security guards running over to me. "Oh, mask, have you got a mask?" and all this, and all that. And I said to one of them, I said, "What, have you farted?" Well,
and then all the viral videos of all the incidents of it going on and people sharing them and spreading that paranoia.
Yeah.
It just kind of amplifies it in a way, too.
Do you remember that bloke with the lint roller? It was he was standing outside I don't know, I think, was it a shop or somewhere? Yeah. And he's telling people to put their arms up, and he's going over them with a lint roller. Okay, can go in. And the other one that was asking people personal questions. Do you see that one?
No, I don't think I saw that one. I saw the lint roller.
Yeah, he said, "Excuse me, madam." He said, "Excuse me, madam, have you had the COVID jab?" She said, yes. Right, have you had a hysterectomy? And he does all these different.
You could have had fun with that. Yeah, you could have. The compliance of people was just off the charts.
Yeah.
You could have gone and.
Did you guys see the YouTube video of the guy that took the term face diaper to a whole new level? He went to a drugstore and he walked in. He actually literally had a diaper on his face, and he's walking around and he's shopping. Okay. And when he got up to the checkout, the guy said, "I'm not going to be able to check you out until you put on a proper mask." And the guy says, "Well, this is my mask." And he says, "No, here, we can provide one for you." And he pulls out one of the blue masks. The guy takes the diaper off. Okay. And what the cashier didn't know, and what everybody else in the store didn't know, was he had chocolate pudding inside the diaper. So when he took it off, he had all this brown on his face. Everybody in the place goes, "Oh my God!" I actually think they scrubbed it from YouTube. It was on YouTube, and I think they deleted it, erased it. But it was so hilariously funny. I should have downloaded it.
Did you see that English one?
Face diaper.
Oh, I like that. That's brilliant. Did you see that woman took her knickers off? Woman said, "Oh, you got to have a mask," so she took her knickers off and shoved them over her head. But it was just bonkers. Absolutely. The worst thing I ever saw was a woman that had a mask on, and a poor little kid in a pushchair not only had a mask on, but had like a you know what the security guards wear, with a plastic visor at the front, like a plastic visor over his head.
Yeah.
Little tot sitting. I mean, that's right. Face shield. Oh. It was it's cruelty.
And then when Biden came out with 2 masks, not just one mask, he had to have 2 masks on.
Sorry, I'm just thinking that chocolate pudding thing. That's hit my funny bone. If we have another lockdown, that's given me ideas.
You know, if people only knew that when the mask mandates came out, it was a CDC administrative rule, and it only applied to CDC employees. It never applied to anybody but Centers for Disease Control employees.
Oh, but the media ran with it.
Yes, they did.
Well, that's the real control there.
Well, have you seen
control?
Sorry, please continue.
I was just saying, if you can get control of the media, you can get control of the populace. I guess that's the moral of what we're talking about here.
It is. Yeah, it's a key thing. Yeah. It is. If you've got the communication high ground, it's really difficult for people with smaller operations to do it. And, you know, this is the idea of a free press would be that the ground is it has to be regulated. Otherwise, the big players, which now exist, arise, and it just gets worse and worse and worser, I think is the correct word to describe it all, as it does, because there's no safeguards for the little guy. And you know, if we look at the rise of the money power since the Middle Ages, since Henry, since the Reformation, since this unbridled use of usury, that's what's happened in every single field. So I guess, you know, over here we think, yeah, it'd be nice to have, you know, Bill Smith be my cobbler and all this, that and the other. It's a much more natural way for us to operate. It's how we would like it to be, like living in Hobbiton or something like that. This supposedly, an ideal which used to exist. Yeah, it's not sort of something made up. It actually used to be like that, because as I was saying, you know, the power of the guilds to protect barrel makers, so that some bloke couldn't come in and set up a large barrel making business in your county and undercut the price of everybody and put them all out of work, creating loads of social distress. It's needed. And you see, I'm completely for tariffs. I don't believe in free trade at all. I believe in total national commercial boundaries. And you just negotiate them slowly up. If you want to swap fish for, you know, hamster pelts or whatever you want to do, get on with it. But the idea of not having tariffs is dense. I think it's really, really stupid. And of course, it's argued that way because it's commie. The whole idea of so-called free trade is just a globalist idea. It's nonsense. It doesn't make anybody happy because it puts all your workmen, doesn't it, on the home base under pressure from what were they called? The sweatshops of the Far East, which is exactly what's happened. So I think Trump should just raise tariffs on everything. I don't care when they're all bleating about it. So it's because the people that govern all of our nations have fallen into this interdependence crap. Oh, yeah, we've all got to be reliant on one another. No, we don't. And that's to destroy nationhood. The whole thing is about destroying nations. You can't have communism if people actually identify with their own nation and their own culture and their own people. Actually, identify is not a strong enough word when they know that that's the most important stuff to them, which is where we've had all that diversity, which has been, the natural cultural diversity of different peoples, which is a great thing, I can't remember. I mean, I don't remember there being so much sort of interracial hatred, supposedly, and stabbings and, kiddie fiddling and all this when it was like that. Maybe I'm deluded, but because it just couldn't happen. The opportunities for that to take place didn't exist, so that's why it didn't happen. And that's why we've got to get back to it, in my humble, parochial, NIMBYist attitude. So I love being a NIMBYist. I just think everything that they actually attack is exactly what you should be. Just go against every single thing that they say, because it's only going in one direction with what they say, isn't it? That's what. So there was a comment in the thing about someone saying that they didn't comply with anything during COVID. I'm exactly the same. I did nothing at all. Will you put a mask on? No. Stop talking to me. I remember in the supermarket, you said, Eric, I remember at the time I was often in the supermarket, the only person without a mask on, staring people down if they even, it started to get uppity with me. Because it's just nonsense.
Bloke come up to me and said, "Where's your mask?"
I'll tell you what is strange. I'll tell you what is strange is that we've nearly run out of time. So I need to look at this. We've run out of our time slot here on WBN. Anyway, we're coming up to the close in a minute and a bit. So I'm going to do an overlapping song, which will start momentarily. But just to let everybody know on WBN that we're here every Thursday at 3 p.m. US Eastern, 3 till 5 US Eastern. And in the UK, that's 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. We carry on with this show as we do most weeks on Rumble and on Radio SOAPBOX and on YouTube at the moment, because I'm being optimistic and naive and can't wait to get thumped. But maybe this one will get it. I don't care. Anyway, we're looking at other options around that kind of stuff. So we'll be back again same time next week. If you want to carry on listening and plug in, Rumble's probably the best place to go to, I guess. Go to paulenglishlive.com and click the Rumble link there on the left. It'll bring you over with all the other reprobates in the Rumble room. I'm going to play us out with a song. Jerry Rafferty, Get It Right Next Time. I've played this before, but it's a groovy little number, so we're going to play it again. It's about 4 minutes' time. Go and get your cocoa or your bubbly tea or whatever it is, and we'll be back after this.
Yeah, you need a name when you're standing at the crossroads. Every highway looks the same.
So there we go, gents. Maybe we'll have to get it right next time. Groovy Little Number That by Jerry Rafferty. That'll probably get it banned from YouTube. They sometimes get a bit cross about the records these days. And coming back to that thing that we were talking about a bit earlier, about creating our sort of continuing to have a go at creating platforms that grow, that's the bit that I've always found tricky. Maybe it's just to do with the nature of the sorts of topics that we talk about and the fact that they are, by definition, unfortunately, even now, of narrow appeal. But I guess shouldn't be too surprising, because if you think about much of the work that we have put in and that many of the listeners, certainly here on Rumble, put into actually acquiring all this information, it's kind of not for the faint-hearted to some degree. But although that sounds neggy, the fact is that there's been more of a growth in this sort of space over the past 4 or 5 years, courtesy of COVID, than anything else. Unfortunately, I would suggest, we've also had an absolute glut of sort of copycat communicators who are brand new into it, very good at marketing, much, much better than me, and probably most of us, which is kind of gathering the crowd up. But we mentioned earlier, I think somewhere in the first hour, this talk about, when Patrick came on, about developing a kind of video platform, and we're going to do that. I've actually got it running at the moment. This show's been going to it, and it's all working fine, so I've just sort of switched it off. It was just a test. We need to just stick it on a new name and maybe look at forming it as a club, which sounds awfully twee. But I think really we probably do. Maybe if we can find some mechanism to make the club membership grow rapidly, that would be cool. Maybe we could tell them that they're all going to make loads of money if they just join the club. That usually works, doesn't it? Join this club and we'll send you $1,000 or something like that. I don't know how we're going to do it, but there we go. Yeah. Anyway, welcome back to the third hour, gents.
Yay!
Yay!
It's good to be back.
It's lovely, isn't it? The other week, actually, I've got another little thing to play here, another little clip. Last week on the show, where was this actually? This is just a quick shout out to, because I made a note of this. Where's this gone? Come here. Where's it gone? Yes. On the Telegram channel, Billy Peart, hi Billy, wrote to me. I don't know if you're listening right now, but anyway, if you hear it on playback, you'll hear this. He was catching up with last week's show and said he couldn't stop laughing at the 45 years thing. And I know, Patrick, you didn't know what it was all about, and maybe, Paul, you didn't. This
Not at first.
Not at first. Are you familiar with this sketch, Eric? Have you heard this one? Do you know this one?
I don't know until you played it.
Well, I'm going to play it. It's 3 minutes long, and it's absolutely marvellous, and it's very, very... And I think this conversation actually originally took place in the Fockham Hall Library, actually, Eric. I'm pretty sure it did. Yeah?
Oh,
it did.
It did. It will be interesting. Yeah.
It did. Anyway, this is... just listen. There's a couple of chaps. I'll tell you who plays their roles. A couple of chaps, about 3 minutes long. This is just for light relief at 7 minutes past 10 for you all. So if you need another cup of cocoa, go grab it now. 3 minutes long. Here we go.
Knock, knock, knock. Am I intruding, Charles?
Not at all, Sheridan. Shirley told me you'd be popping by. Is it time for a brandy?
29 minutes past 6, Charles. No, I don't think so.
Is that all it is? Oh, gosh. Yes, of course. Goodness me, no. Please.
Thank you. I've actually come with some other sad news, I'm afraid, Charles. Poor old Bunny Armstrong Miller popped his clogs last night.
Oh, that's terrible news. I could do with a brandy. Is it that time?
6:30, yes. He apparently conked out in the night. Thankfully, it was very quick, but poor old Joyce is in a terrible stew.
Oh, it must have been a terrible shock.
Yes, a frightful business.
How old was Bunny?
He was only 85.
Still very young.
Very young.
Oh, poor Joyce. She'll be at a total loss. I mean, after all, they've been married for what, 40 or 45 years?
40, 45 years. Yeah.
40 years, 45 years.
40, 45 years.
40,
45 years.
40, 45 years. How long have you and Caroline been married? 40 years, 45 years?
Oh, 40, 45 years, 40. 40 years. 40, 45 years.
45 years, yeah.
40 or 45 years. What about you, Charles? Is 40, 45 years?
40, 45 years. 40, 45 years.
40, 45 years.
45 years.
40, 45 years?
45 years.
40, 45 years. Terrible. I mean, terrible shock.
Terrible shock. Did he have a condition?
Oh, no. He was fit as a butcher's dog. I mean, he whopped me at tennis last week, 6-2, 6-love.
He wasn't still playing club tennis at his age, surely.
No. No, he only played 3 times a week, and he only raced Austin Healey's for the last 3 or 4 years, and he never went out with cows for more than a fortnight at a stretch.
Well, I suppose there comes a time in all of our lives when we have to take account of our age, Sheridan. When one has to say goodbye to the Matterhorn and hello to the Peak District.
Yes. When one has to climb down from the Montrachet to the Pinot Grigio, as it were.
Well, I wouldn't go that far, Sheridan. Of course, Her Majesty will be terribly upset.
Oh, of course, yes. I mean, she and Bunny have known each other for what, 40, 45 years, Freddy?
40 years, 45 years.
40 years, 45 years?
40, 45 years, I think.
40, 45 years.
I'd top you up.
It's a very good brandy, Charles. How old is it?
40 years, 45 years.
40,
45 years.
Interesting to think, isn't it, that when this brandy was cast, Bunny would have been, what, 40, 45 years old?
Well, I suppose if it's 40 years old, he would have been 45. If it's 45 years old, he would have been 40. So 45 years.
40, 45.
Poor old Bunny.
Poor old Bunny, but very funny. Anyway, that's very English humour. I just thought you ought to hear that. And thanks, Billy, for finding the clip. And one of my favourite sketches ever. And so there you go. I just... you ever heard that one before, Eric?
Never heard of it before, no. I mean, I was thinking, is that Peter Cook and Dudley Moore? But no, it's not.
It's not. That was Harry Enfield and Paul Whitehouse. And...
really?
Yes. I mean, there's not even a joke in it, is there, really? It's just them. They're brilliant. Yeah, Sheridan, who's played by Paul Whitehouse.
What's the delivery?
Yeah, well, they're 2 doctors, right, who work in Harley Street. You should see all of their sketches that they come to. They're fantastic. And I'm sure those guys used to come to Fockham Hall quite regularly, Eric. They're the sort of crowd that would rock up there, wouldn't they?
I can imagine that, yeah.
And they probably stayed there for, what, 40, 45 minutes or something like that? 45 minutes. You'll say it, be saying it forever now. Actually, I mean, looking at the clock, we've got about 40, 45 minutes left, actually. So it's all, it's all meant...
pretty good, yes. But really, with gags, though, it is the delivery. The art of a good comedian is to say something that's not funny and make it funny, just by the way they say it.
Isn't it all about timing? That's the joke, isn't it? It's all about...
Yeah, they say it's timing.
Timing. Yeah.
Also, reading the audience as well.
Yes, delivery.
Delivery, yes.
You mean reading the audience because they're all covered in tattoos with sort of inscriptions all over their body?
You could say that.
You didn't quite mean that,
like,
did you?
Julian Clary came on stage and said, "Oh, I do like a warm hand on my entrance." Right. It's not really funny, is it? But from him,
No, but you're laughing quite a lot, and I'm getting a bit worried. So there's that. There's all these Julian Clary gags. There's the German headbanging stuff. This has been quite a revelation tonight, Eric. I've got a very different...
Yes.
I'm getting a very different picture here, yeah.
Well, I actually introduced Deb. You know Deb, who comes on my show?
I do.
I introduced her to the German headbanging stuff, and she can't get enough of it. She loves it now.
Is that Deb from Yorkshire?
Yorkshire Deb. She loves the German headbangers, yep. She particularly likes Eisbrecher, This Is Deutsch. And I actually played it, and I didn't get banned for it because they're legit. You know, they're legit.
They're proper. They're proper, are they?
Represented by high-end music lawyers.
Yeah. But as I say, status quo got nothing. These people they really know it. Icebreaker, you know. But give it a try. You might like it.
I'm trying to bang my head right now, but it's giving me a bit of a headache already. That hurts. I've no idea why anyone would do it. Not I mean, if you do it for 40, 45 minutes? I mean, that's not going to 40 or 45 minutes is going to really hurt your head,
40,
isn't
45
it?
seconds.
Yeah, 40, 45 seconds. Oh yeah, 40, 45 seconds actually. Yes, absolutely. There we go. I always wanted to have a pregnant pause. Did you hear that pregnant pause? I was trying to create one.
But how did Eric get into this kind of music? I'm wondering, because I hate that kind of music.
Me too. I can't stand it, Eric. It makes me ill.
I used to, Ozzy Osbourne is kind of like the quintessential headbanger type.
No, it's not quite as headbang. You haven't heard it yet. Hear it, just a little bit of it. So listen to Icebreaker. This is Deutsch. And it's pretty good actually once you get into it. So Deb, she's really, she really liked it. Oh, I like that.
Do you want to do a headbanging show? Maybe you and Debs could sort of play that stuff. We could get you on.
Do a bit of headbanging, yeah.
Right.
So that's.
I might not show up for that one. You don't mind, do you? You won't be sort of put out.
Well, you listen to it. I bet you will be a convert. It's bloody good. It really is. I don't
convert to
like
what
heavy
though?
Rock. German rock music.
All right.
People don't hear of it. You see, thing is, I don't normally like heavy rock at all. Soft Machine, all that sort of stuff. No, I don't like it. But this is a bit different. It's very, very different, and it's very clever as well the way it's done. And they do some real good ones on there. So because you don't hear German music very much, especially rock music. But they are good. So they know how to play the guitar. And there's one that they did in a lavatory. Played, was it To the Hilt? It's called. It's actually recorded in a lavatory. See,
right.
So I'm not the only lavatorial person.
No.
And there's no farts in it at all.
Have you ever heard of Schlager? German Schlager music?
No.
Oh man.
No.
It's kind of like, it's like Boney M, or however you say it, type stuff.
Oh, it's not like Boney M, no.
Yeah.
No.
It's really cheeseball type of music.
No, is it some of the words? Was it left, right, in the square, kindergarten, tin soldier, always punctual, and never invariably correct? Because something German is embedded in us. Correct, perfect. That's the words. It's translated into English.
Do you want to hear a little bit about what just jumping from the lavatorial headbanging back into the intellectual assessment of usury? Okay, just to sort of get things slightly back on track, or some kind of a track. I've got there's a little page here by this is by Belloc. This is how he writes about usury. It's quite good. This is only a minute read, if that. Right, he goes, usury so extended throughout a community, so taken for granted, lays the community under an unjust tribute, and at the same time becomes the central controller, whether through productive or unproductive loans, of most social activities. The larger the unit of capital present, the easier the transaction called emission of credit. Centralized lending of this kind, which is today universal, don't we know it, actively promotes the absorption of the small man, that's us, everybody, by the great. He doesn't mean that they're great and fabulous, he just means they're huge, The reduction of small property owners to a proletarian condition. Hello, proles. It is with usury, as with other evils in society, apart from its original immorality and the manifest causes thereof, it produces secondary effects which are also evil, until at last it has infected the whole community. We're all infected. This is the real virus. As long as usury was forbidden by the moral law and its immorality admitted, even though it took place widely, it took place under protest. It was always checked by the public disrepute in which it was held, and by the fact that, unless it were disguised, the interest could not be recovered by law. Disguises were indeed often used, as for instance the promise to repay on a certain date a certain sum of money as having been lent, when it was in fact A smaller sum had been lent. But though such subterfuges were continual, the evil could not spread until the taking of interest upon money alone became an admitted practice of which no man was ashamed. Everybody's okay with it, you see, which no one thought evil, which was taken for granted. And he says that is precisely what happened within the space of about 2 lifetimes after the Reformation first broke down our common morals. By the 3rd generation, great central banks had arisen, notably in Amsterdam and London. Shortly afterwards, during the 18th century, men had everywhere begun to think, later in Catholic societies than in Protestant, but everywhere at last, as though interest on money were part of the nature of things, as though money had indeed, merely as money, a right to breed. The false doctrine was bound to lead to a deadlock at last, and in our own time that deadlock has been reached. The recovery of the vast usurious loans is becoming impossible. Recourse has had to be taken to repudiation on all sides, and the whole system is breaking down. Now, they've found a way, of course, of stopping it breaking down for 100 years since he wrote this. But still, we know that, technology has come to the aid of them by extending all these sorts of whiz-bang ideas to actually improve purchasing power, whereas in fact the fundamental foundation of the whole thing is absolutely destructive to all of us. And I just thought that's how he writes about it. It's very precise stuff, and there's a lot of it, and it's really, well, when I say a lot, the book's about 200 pages, so it's not an immense tome. That's from the Crisis of Civilisation by Belloc. So there you go. I know you probably did learn
written?
About 1915, I think, something like that.
Pre-war
maybe not,
or during the war,
or maybe just after 1920s. Yeah, because, I mean, he also wrote, there was a paper, you're thinking about the Fockham Hall Times, there was a paper called The New Age, which is a weird sort of thing in a way. I mean, I can't find many copies of it. It had a very high reputation. Some of the writers are absolutely, the leading thinkers.
Age?
The New Age here in England.
That was in England, because I think in America we had one, and it was put out by the Freemasons.
Okay.
It was their main magazine.
Yeah, I mean, this had people like George Bernard Shaw writing for it, who I'm not a fan of, and there are pictures of Belloc and Chesterton with Shaw, so I suppose they must have had some commonality of ground. But
they're buddies.
Yeah, sort of. I mean, Shaw was a champion of socialism, but Belloc points out that socialism is basically a false solution. It's a complete red herring. It doesn't work because it doesn't address this issue. You don't address this issue, you can forget everything else. Is just all the isms are all a con.
What we're dealing with now is socialism, bringing in all sorts of different social, cultures and whatnot, the diversity and under the banner of socialism, socializing with these groups that don't get along very well, putting them all in one geographic space and expecting them to I don't know what they expect, but it's to divide labor more than anything, to keep people from asking for a higher wage for their labor.
Absolutely. I'll just read you these. I'm just glancing at these next couple of paragraphs. I could read this all night, but you probably all go to sleep, I suppose, or it doesn't make for really great stuff. Let me just finish off this little sub-paragraph. He says, because it addresses kind of what you just said. He says, but remember that the worst of its effects is not its own self-destruction, but the way in which it has gathered into a few centres the power of controlling the lives of the community, and particularly of the proletariat, hello proles, whose employment and therefore existence depends upon the advance of credit by the holders of financial power, the money power basically. For all our great enterprises today are possible only through the favour of the lenders of money or credit. We may sum up then and say that the unrestricted admittance of usury as a normal economic function about a lifetime after the Reformation advanced the destruction of economic freedom, the swallowing up of the small man by the greater man, and the ultimate production of a large destitute proletariat in the following fashions. 1. By the eating up of small property through usury, falling as it did habitually upon men already embarrassed, and achieving their ruin. 2. By transferring real wealth in goods and land to those who directly used their mere money power, that's all it is, often enormous and impersonal through mortgage and foreclosure. And then he goes on to talk about, he says, I won't go into all this, he says, the second of the two forces, because the first one is usury, but he says the second of the two forces let loose by the Reformation for the ultimate destruction of economic freedom and the production of capitalism with its now revolutionary proletariat was the force of unrestricted competition. And that's the thing that the guilds restrained. It wasn't unrestricted. Guilds made sure that you didn't get unrestricted competition because it leads to this situation where the small man, that's us, as we've descended from free peasants into serfs, and they'll get us down to slaves again if they can under feudalism. That's what does it. So you're always told competition's great. Yes, what we want. No, it's rubbish. Every single thing we've been taught is complete crap. All of it. Because these fundamentals are not really addressed. I mean, why should we outcompete each other for cabbages? It's completely bonkers when you think about it. I'm not a commie, by the way. Everybody thinks, oh, you were all going to share it up. No, we're not. So that system in the Middle Ages really worked, and it had to be held together by a moral and ethical framework, which the church managed to do. Although, as I said, as Belloc points out, it was falling apart. And his line there, the Reformation advanced the destruction of economic freedom. It had already begun during the tail end of the Catholic control of England anyway, and probably most of the other countries in Europe. But the Reformation basically, like turbocharged it. It opened the sluice gates and bang, we moved into this new phase. And of course, by what we're talking, 1530, by 1692, is it, or whatever, we've got the Bank of England. And that cleared everywhere all the sort of impediments to unrestrained development of the money power, which we now still live under. Hurrah! Aren't we happy? So we're amongst groups of really brilliant men who all understand this stuff, and we've still yet to find a way to bring this thing to heel and to crush it so that it can't rise again.
So it was 1692 the Bank of England started?
Yeah.
And then 100 years later, the American Revolution happened?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, and then 40 years later, you've got the Battle of Waterloo, which is absolutely pivotal in this country's history, simply because of the Rothschilds' ability to, they took over the whole of the 62% of the economic base of England, and we were finished. That was it, done. They've been in control ever since Waterloo. Ta-da!
And then control the Bank of England. Were they part of establishing the Bank of England?
Well, I don't know I don't think they were in 1690 odd, but they came here in the 1700s, and they must have been at some point because they played a role they had their agents in the South for the Civil War, but that's what 1860s. So it may be 1700s that they came here, but they were certainly here by 1815. I can't remember what the exact dates were, but that's definitely part of it. Yeah, I mentioned that really bright guy Chris Langan the other week. I think I mentioned something from him. He had a post up. He was responding to a comment that somebody had made into him. I won't read the whole of everything. He says, the comment that came in was, England is being conquered. The mayor of London is Muslim. Birmingham, Blackburn, Leeds, blah, 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 blah. He said all of this was achieved by only 4 million Muslims out of the 66 million people in England. If these numbers are correct, we don't really know. And he goes on the number of mosques and all this kind of stuff. But Langan deals with it completely accurately. He said, yeah, England is being conquered. And yes, this is an invasion. However, this particular invasion did not begin with Muslims. No, it did not. It's not even their fault they're being used as a pawn in all of this. It's still a problem, nevertheless. It began with Zio-banksters freely let into England by English royals and bureaucrats as an easy source of fast money, courtesy of the Reformation. That's what happened. That's really what happened.
Have you ever heard of the term millenarianism?
Yes, I have, but you're going to have to redefine it for me because my brain's gone blank, but I've definitely heard of it, yeah.
I think it's what ended up becoming Zionism.
Right.
In Christian circles, where it's the rapture type mentality, like there's going to be a second coming and it's going to bring in 1,000 years of peace or however long they consider it, and hence the term millennium or millenarianism.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's been a long time heresy of sorts that you could say it goes back, to the time of Christ, and that's run parallel with the church ever since then. And what it did in England was create people like Oliver Cromwell, and led to this idea that the Messiah, the second coming of the Messiah, coincides with the Jewish first coming of the Messiah. So they're involved. It's like a socialism between Jews and Christians, you could say, where where instead of being separate by religion, they make this secret pact amongst themselves to cooperate, kind of like the Freemasons do. So I would consider that socialism of a sorts.
Yeah,
and that's how it was enabled to operate in Christendom, which the Reformation enabled it to really take hold of the institutional power and eventually collapse the Christian monarchies to the point we have it today.
Yep. I've just put the link to that Chris Langan post in the Rumble chat, and I would suggest to all of you give it it's a great summary. You've probably heard much of it here before, and that sounds a bit cocky, but it's true. But he sums it up. It's great. It's really good. Particularly point 3.
Who is Chris Langan?
He's the brightest man in the world. He's in your neck of the woods. No, seriously, he's got an IQ of 192.
Oh, that's the guy. That's the guy.
Yeah, he used to be a bouncer for 25. He's the most astonishing sort of history. He was a bouncer in New York nightclubs for 25 years. And then he got a bit bored with it. I don't know why he was a bouncer for so long, but he's very, very bright. And you can find interviews with him. So here we've got one of the brightest guys on the planet, and we've still got to figure out a way to turn this round. I mean, point 1 is he talks about the Rothschilds and lending money to the British Army and Waterloo and all that kind of stuff. So that's great. 2, he says, with regards to England, its wealth depleted. England was forced to take hat in hand and beg the Rothschilds for money. Yes, being the humanitarian that he was, Rothschild bailed them out. Ever since, Rothschilds have controlled the English economy. I've been banging on about this for years, but many people here know this already. From the ground up, in no time flat, they gained dominance over the European economy, which they smoothly parlayed into control over the world economy. That's why they own the Federal Reserve, okay? So this stuff is absolutely vital, and that's why it's not taught. Money is power, he writes in point 3. Thus, very soon after they took over the English economy, the Rothschilds and their fellow banksters effectively took over the English government. This is why I've never voted, and there's no point voting because it's a waste of time. As every Englishman knows full well, you all do, don't you? The English government has never had anything but utter contempt for English commoners. Hooray! We've got nothing but utter contempt for them, of course, in return, but we didn't start it. It despises them in an off with their heads kind of way, just as it once despised its American colonists. Absolutely true. We've always had the same enemy. Number 4, he says, consistently with the Coudenhove-Kalergi population replacement plan, generously funded by Warburgs and Rothschilds from the 1920s onwards, the banksters have used their control of the English government and its EU umbrella bureaucracy to unleash a flood of third world migration. That's the flood, by the way, that's referenced in the Bible. Yeah, go on.
The United Nations to that.
Yeah.
Which if he were in New York City, he would have seen a lot of the United Nations type people.
He would,
because it's just in and out constantly.
It would. He said so. That was point 4, and the last one's point 5. He says, as a result, London is now an Islamic city and other British cities are on its heels. But don't worry, diversity rules. Yes, of course. He's being ironic, of course, and sarcastic. The plan is to thin out the Muslims with Asians and Africans in order to replace Englishmen with what Kalergi called the Eurasian Negroid race of the future. Everyone will be an identical shade of brown and mercifully unburdened with the excessive national IQ and low crime rates for which England was once envied the world over. Never fear, Englishmen. Thus far, everything has been going right on schedule. That's it, really. That's it.
Well, when you say they're going to turn brown, is that because they're going to they're going to work outside a lot and get a tan?
I don't think he meant that, no. And they certainly won't be drinking tea. Maybe excessive tea drinking turns you brown. I don't know. But that's the gist of it. That's the gist. And of course, if we look at the woke movement, it's to actually completely counter any sort of understanding of that, isn't it? To a great degree, you go, we don't want any trade barriers. Everybody can move around. We don't want any of that. So in everything that, if all these qualities and characteristics of retaining nationhood are extreme right, we're extreme. We're so right, we're off the map. Of course, it's a nonsense because everything's been moving left for 200 years.
Eric was talking about Churchill earlier. He was talking about Churchill, how it would be nice to go back and put words in his mouth of a sort. But I think I have copies of his speeches where he literally plays out what's going to happen post-war Europe with the loss of borders and the mass migration of peoples into Europe. He talked about that during the war as a plan for the United Nations getting together and creating this utopia type situation. So they already did this. I should find it for you. I've come across it a few times playing it back. I've got thousands of hours of it, of old World War II broadcasts, and it's just fascinating listening back to the brainwashed nature of people and the reporting and how they were getting people whiz-bang amped up to go to war and just the thrill of victory in the air. And they had a good propaganda. You're talking about Charlie and his orchestra, but I think America had a much better propaganda ministry along with the Brits than the Germans ever did.
Do you think it has something to do with the year 92?
92?
What have we got?
Well,
in
I was talking...
1692, the Bank of England was created, right?
Yeah. I was talking
1792, the American version. 1492, Columbus discovered America. In 1592, Sir John Harrington invented the flush toilet, which is pretty much where we've been since.
Harrington's contribution's the greater of them all.
Yeah.
Well,
good old Harrington.
A lot less pleasant smelling too, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
So, but I was talking with E. Michael Jones just after a show last week, and he was mentioning that there's this notion that a empire can only last about 80 years, or a republic for that matter, and that for America, it was the first republic started with the Revolutionary War and ended with the Civil War and brought in the Second Republic, and then came the First World War in America, in Europe and whatnot, and up until maybe about the Second World War, and that brought in the Third Republic, and now we're kind of going through a transition period into the Fourth Republic.
Yeah.
And all of the wars were created by bankers to bankrupt countries so they could loan money. And
there's a proper term for the bankers, but yes, I agree.
Seize the countries. I mean, the American War, one side was funded by Britain, the other side was funded by France, but France couldn't afford it, so what did they do? They got the money from Britain. So we had no choice but to go bankrupt because we were pushed into wars that we couldn't afford. That never should have happened in the first place.
So now we know the backstory. It's worth repeating it often. It actually boils down to a few really pertinent sort of dynamics that are at play, and so we are faced with solving it, or someone is. Anybody? Any solutions? Anybody? I still quite like the chemicals idea, Paul. Actually, any chemists
What's
here?
That?
Balls in a bottle. Balls in a bottle. You take it. You've suddenly got
testosterone in a jar.
Yeah.
By the way, you know you were talking about toilets earlier.
Well, you do.
I do, yes.
You
did
never
you know
forgot
the toilet
that.
seat? Or did you know the toilet seat was invented by the Irish? Do you know that? It's been invented in Ireland, and it was the English that actually decided to put a hole in it. Sorry, that's a terrible one.
That's terrible.
I always get slightly nervous whenever we have anything to do with plumbing or toilets, Eric. Slightly on edge with the whole thing.
But no,
I'm sorry I started it. My fault.
No, it's all right, Paul. You're
changing
allowed.
the subject slightly. I mean, when you look at the American Civil War, the North was bankrupt, and it was Lincoln that introduced the greenback. That's tided it over, and of course he was assassinated by John Wilkes Booth, who was Sherry Blair's great grandfather, because her name was Sherry Booth before she met Blair, and that's the ex-Prime Minister of Great Britain I'm talking about, his wife. But then, of course, Britain was bankrupt in 1914, when First World War started. So they introduced the Bradbury Pound, which I'm sure the people in chat know about, by Lloyd George, who was Chancellor at the time. And then when he became Prime Minister, he somehow, for some weird reason, phased it out. And nobody knows the reason why, although we can guess. And that's it, basically. And I think that, again, usually has to have wars in order to keep going and to get countries into debt. I mean, when you look at the First World War, what those poor souls went through and what they were promised and what they came back to worse poverty than when they left. And people don't realise that in 1918, 1919, in fact, 1918 was the lowest turnout ever up to that time of people voting. And this country was actually just teetering on the edge of a revolution, just teetering on the edge. And it was very, very skillful manipulation by the secret services that prevented it. So a lot of things happened in 1921, such as the Firearms Act, and also the British Legion was formed. And,
when World War II was declared in your country, how was it? How was it promulgated? What did you go to Parliament? Did Parliament do it? Was it an act of the Prime Minister? How did that work?
Well, no, the Prime Minister actually gave Germany a deadline. And the deadline was if they do not stop invading Poland, I can't repeat it verbatim, then a war exists between Germany and Britain at 11 o'clock.
So the Prime Minister declared war.
That's right, Neville Chamberlain, yes.
Yeah, it was never promulgated by the Parliament properly.
No, it wasn't. But what people don't realise is that it was a coalition government during World War II, and there was two prime ministers. There was Attlee and Churchill. Now, Churchill was the mouthpiece, but the person that was really running the country was Attlee. That was what was really happening.
So there were two prime ministers. What were they called? Prime ministers? How did that work?
No, what it was a coalition government because there was no elections. So by some strange way, Churchill became prime minister. He took over from Chamberlain. So what happened before the war? The Conservatives were in power under Neville Chamberlain. And then when war was declared, there was no elections. So what they did, they had a coalition government where Labour, who had the highest amount of votes, and Conservatives, they got together. So the leader of the Labour Party was he was actually the man that was Clement Attlee was actually running the country, whilst Churchill was going around spouting his mouth off. That's an actual fact. So,
yeah, in America, it was kind of a similar situation where it was up until 41 when I believe it was the presidential election that was going on. I'm not certain about that, but I'm pretty sure it was a run up to the presidential election, because that's when Lindbergh was running as the third party candidate, which is quite rare to get a popular third party in America that had a chance to make it. But he lost because of the fact of Pearl Harbor. And it was after that obviously that they were going to war. So
but that was engineered.
His chances were slim.
But I can understand Americans' feeling, because if I was in America at that time, I would want to be in isolation. I would have actually backed Lindbergh. Why should America get involved in the European war? You know, but when you look at it, Roosevelt knew that Pearl Harbor was going to happen. We all know that now. Lying out of his back teeth, he was. Awful person. Evil man. But when you look at all these films, as I say, there's two versions of what happened in World War II. The Hollywood version that the majority of people believe, and what really happened. And that's it, basically.
You know, it could well be that a path to a solution to this could be given a great boost through politics, not with a view that we could have a political party with these policies get elected. But to be in a party that held, and I know there are some, I think there's the English Democrats and maybe the British Democrats or whatever they're called. I don't know all the names of them. There are all these little, of course, the history of them is
British Democrats.
Well, when they get together,
English Constitution Party.
Yeah,
sorry.
When they get together, there's often so much seems to be a history of infighting, whether that's genuine or is brought about by agent provocateur, I don't know, but there's certainly a history of it, and it's difficult. The idea that those parties would gain power would not be the goal. I mean, you'd state that it was publicly because people think you're insane not to state it, but it wouldn't necessarily need to do it. I mean, it's in the same way that, like, I think somewhere in Australia, the Green Party has colossal power because it's got these sort of deciding votes in decisions. So, you know, they've only got a small handful of seats. And they're able to sort of influence it that way. But a political machine in the sense of, so you form a party, but the purpose of it is to develop its communications side off the charts. That's the real thing to work on. You know, we need to find a modern day Goebbels in simple terms.
But that's what the British Democrat Party are doing. They're actually going for, I've got a feeling they will actually come round and knock on the door.
Well, I better go work for them then.
Yeah,
or something. Anything that's constructive, that's out there on the street, that's doing things. And at least if you're doing it with people of like mind, at least you can hold your own sanity in good condition whilst all this is going on. You know, it's not with the view that you're going to gain power, but if you start to actually affect people, because that's really what people need to see. They need to see a sort of unified group of some sort that's coherent and that's saying the right things and that can back it up with factual, truthful sort of expositions of it, brief, short, wonderfully entertaining YouTube 3-minute videos to get complex points across in bullet point versions, you know, because of the supposedly massive reduction in people's attention span. Maybe it's only 10 seconds we've got these days, you know.
Yeah, but that's what they do. They're putting up around where I live, and I've had their leaflets through the door. That's how I found out about them. And I believe that they're an offshoot from what used to be the BNP.
Yeah.
Because you know what happened to Nick Griffin in the BNP. Did you ever hear what
Well, there was some kind of undermining process. That's all I can really say. I'm not knowledgeable about the details of it, but I suspect, you know, no smoke without fire and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, well, their policy was to eradicate usury, to actually outlaw usury. And he had a knock on the door by the men in funny suits. And he was basically told that if you don't take that out of your election manifesto, we will destroy you, and we will destroy your party, your political party. He didn't take it out of the manifesto, and look what happened. They destroyed him, and they destroyed his party.
Yeah,
they're going to the BNP today.
They're going to coach it in terms of Semitism, pro-Semitism versus anti-Semitism.
Yeah,
that's how it goes with that, and it's always been the British liberal position, in as far as usury goes. And you'd think that being a Labour Party would be more prone to be against usury, since it's supposed to be about the working man, but apparently, not.
There's a lot of Jewish people against it, because when we're talking about the money people, we're talking about the psychopaths tops. That's my attitude.
Yep.
Top of the pile are the psychopaths, and they don't give a damn what religion they are, what nationality they are. A psychopath is a psychopath. Full stop, end of. They are our enemy. Again, full stop. You see, once upon a time, an enemy was that lot coming over the hill towards your lot, and if your lot don't kill that lot, they're going to kill you. Nowadays, we can't see the enemy. Nobody knows who the enemy is.
Well, it's just like the whole Christian thing, too. You have the millenarianism of certain Christians that doesn't represent the entirety of Christendom. I would imagine that's the same on the other side of the religious argument. You know, even with Muslims, they're bad Muslims and then they're good Muslims that don't appreciate usury.
There's branches, isn't there? There are different. Shall we say? There's always fanatics. I mean, with Christianity, you've got Methodists, you've got all different branches of Christianity. I think so. Probably in the Catholic Church, there's different branches that are different sort of
persuasions.
Persuasions. In every religion, in the Jewish religion. There are different. There are moderates, there's hardliners, there's all kinds. I mean, there is a group who actually are on the side of Palestine, and they are actually treated like shit by the rest of the Jews, and they actually hold the Palestinian flag, and they were totally against the state of Israel. Now, you don't hear about them; they're never on the news, but they are. So there's a lot of, and this is why I say the psychopaths. What they're doing is they always stir up trouble with the natives, and whilst the natives are fighting against each other, we're not looking at who is the real enemy, and they are the real enemy.
Yeah,
and that's it.
Divide and conquer.
That's it, and they're doing this all the time. I mean, I actually, there was on Telegram. I can't remember. Can you remember Paul or Patrick? There was a professor that said that this country is actually on the verge of a revolution. Do you remember that posting?
I don't.
No, it was. I think it might have been on your site, Paul. Can't remember.
Right. Don't know.
Hang on, I'll have a quick shifty.
It's definitely they do that when they want to make a quick getaway. When they've been caught in some criminal act, they create the distraction for everyone to focus their attention on. And it's like same here with the whole racial tensions between the blacks and the whites, getting people all stirred up against each other, so that you're not focusing on the real problem, which is the usury class of people who are stoking the violence, because it deflects any attention to their theft that's going on.
Yeah. Well, that's it. And people still fall for it time and time again. That's the big problem.
Well, not all of us do we, Erica? You're absolutely right. They do, but
no, we don't.
I've fallen for things in my younger days, and of course, one dreads falling for something again as you supposedly think you're mature and have worked it all out. But the truth is, I haven't. So I'm prone to that. It's why working in a group is so important. And of course, they don't want that. The group, a cell, as it were. You need, you could call it a support group, but it's actually something where you're operating on the same frequency of thought, and it's got so much more power. It actually gives you power. That is a sense of well-being and sort of sanity and stability as you actually plow through all this stuff. I mean, I'm just looking further on down this Langan post as well. Someone's on his post, someone wrote, "The Muslim invasion is really because of the Jews?" ? And then he's put, "Your post has been rated stupid beyond belief because of how stupid it is," and all this, that, and the other. Langan's response is just another completely accurate thing. He just says, relax. You're just a lowly cog in the Zio Bankster machine and don't need to shout in all caps. Once you simmer down, crack a decent history book, a man after my own heart, Chris. It might do you some good. This is why I bang on about it. Then start using that sore, painfully swollen little head of yours for something other than holding up your pink pussy dunce cap. While the Rothschilds and other founding members of the international banking community are both Jewish and Zionist, it is presently the case that not all banksters are Jewish. This is true. However, all banksters are indeed Zionists, if only because no one opposed to Zionism is tolerated by the most powerful Zio banksters. Also correct. See how clear and irrefutable it all is? You needn't stalk your favourite pin-up girls, Kamala, AOC, Ilhan Omar and Nancy Pelosi for comment. Your choices are simple. Either stand up and insist on reform, I would suggest even bring it about because no one else is going to help us, or roll over and continue to be painfully sodomized by your bankster dungeon masters. That's plainly the case. So, every
that's
time
why
we have
Dante
this...
put those two in hell, the sodomites and the usurers.
Mm-hmm.
The same circle of hell, the seventh circle.
So, I'm personally, I know for me, I can't speak for everybody, but I know that I want more structure in what I'm working on. I love doing this, and we're going to keep on doing this. But I always get this sense of slightly going around in circles with the communication, not that we're intending to, but there's something that I sense in myself I'm avoiding, which is an action plan. And I know those things get shot down, and I know they get infiltrated, and I know they often end in ruin, but I'm hard-pressed to think of anything else. And it seems that the action plan has got to be about communicating these. I mean, there's such a lot of data that we've even talked about in these last 3 hours that most people are very familiar with. And it's so easy to forget that people outside of this sort of conversation haven't a clue about these sorts of topics because they never come up for the reasons that Paul was talking about. You know, that they're literally working all day, you know, and all that kind of stuff. But that we can reach them. I believe that we can. And even if that's a false belief, it's one that I'm going to retain because I think it's very constructive and I feel moralized, as it were. Not demoralized, but moralized by it. I think that this is sound, a good way to spend my life doing these things. And I no doubt many other people feel the same way. That's why there's so many of us talking about it.
And I think we've got to use the emotion of laughter. I think it's a very good tool to get information through in small sections to make people laugh, to get them to laugh, because that's why they've gone for our humour, because that is part of our culture. They've gone for our architecture, which was part of our culture. They destroyed that. When you look at these beautiful old buildings that are being knocked down, it's criminal, total criminal. But they've done it. Why? Because you've then wiped out a person's culture. I mean, you take a picture of this modern architecture or postmodern architecture of, say, office buildings. You could be anywhere in the world now. They're the same all the way around. That cannot go on. But I think that... Sorry.
Eric, there's a movie out now that got the Academy Award, at least for the best actor. It's called The Brutalist. No,
you put that on the link.
I sent that to you. Yeah.
Thanks. Yes.
Brutalism. I'm not familiar with that term for architecture so much, but it sounds terrible. We got a minute and a bit to wrap up here, guys. Okay. Before I play the outro song, I just wanted to read one last little comment really from this Langan thread. I've put the link in, and there's a really good thread. He comes in many times. I can't read all of it, but some of these threads on Twitter are fantastic. They're really, really good since they kind of opened it up. And there is an account on Twitter called Christians Against Usury. And in this thread, they've written a very short thing. Permit usury, expect usurpation. God. True. And that's it. That's really it. So we have to find this, we have to sort of work on developing this communication platform that we're a part of and get it focused in on these key things. I know the work of Roger Sales is very key because that's about status. And he would, just to let you know, Paul, he'd get a lot from Belloc's review of status because basically that's what status gets replaced by contract when you move to a usury system. And it was status that people had under the guild system. They were defined. They knew what they did. Everything got stable. People could raise families. They could produce good quality work. They didn't get threatened. They didn't lose their livelihood. All of these things were just completely wide open to total abuse by these bar stewards, as it were. I know you all know that, but there we go. So
anything you know of by Belloc that is available in audiobook, let me know and I'll pass it on to him.
All right, okay. Well, I'm going to do one, but I need to profile my voice. I really sort of need to get all that kind of sorted out. Diddle-diddle-dum. Okay, we're going to play out now with I Can Help by Billy Swan. I hope you can, Billy. We want as much help as we can get from everybody. Thank you very much, everyone, for this week's show. We'll be back again same time next week. Of course, we'll be back same time next week, 8 p.m., and I'm kind of like this thread that we're on for the past couple of weeks, so we might be pushing it again. We might throw in a few more news stories as well, just to keep us all, drama-ridden and all that kind of stuff. Eric, Paul, and Patrick, thanks very much for being here this week. I look forward to your company next week. Yeah, and to everybody on Rumble that's contributed this evening, fantastic. As I said, I put that link to the Langham post in the Rumble thread. I suggest you all give it a click and go through it. It's excellent summary. Getting things in short form is brilliant. See you all next week, everyone. Bye for now.
Telling me everything can do it